Monster Synthesis Master. Chapter 11, Machinery Fanatics. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. SHH, don't make any noise. Lin Ke ran over to Forbes quickly. Under the faint starlight, he saw that half of Forbes's body had sunk into the ground and was tightly stuck. Why are there holes in the gobi? Lin Ke was bewildered as he frowned. Forbes placed his hands on the ground and pushed as he felt a chill in his heart. Slowly stretch your feet to check around. Is there anything around your feet? Remember to be careful when you stretch your feet. Lin Ke said calmly. Forbes was so panicked that his 6 vital organs were on the verge of failing. But when he heard boss's words, his prior worries and stress were wiped out. He had found his support pillar. Forbes followed Lin Ke's instructions and focused on his lower body. His 2 legs moved around slowly as he tried to feel around with the soles of his feet. Soon, Forbes's army boots touched a hard, pointed object. He was so frightened that his body started trembling. However, he still probed around seriously. What have you found? Looks like a trap. There are many spikes below. Boss, leave quickly. If not, people of Machinery Holy Cult will come around, Forbes chokingly said in a low voice, sounding a little teary. What will happen to you if I leave? Me dying is better than both of us dead. Lin Ke was initially mad. He then let out a laugh, got up, and glanced down at Forbes. Although he could not see Forbes's face in the darkness, the 2 trails of tears were very clear under the stars. You don't trust me? It's just a group of Machinery Holy Cult fanatical followers. What is there to be afraid of? Lin Ke's tone was flat as if he was not afraid of being discovered. Forbes had a frozen expression as he stared straight at Lin Ke. Although the darkness covered boss's awe-inspiring face, the self-confidence exuding from his body was as dazzling as 1,000 suns, making it impossible for anyone to look at him directly. Lin Ke did not idle around. He had already guessed that this trap was probably set up by the fanatical followers patrolling the Grand Canal to improve their meals. One must know that there was only one such canal in this desolate gobi. The animals in the gobi hid from the sun during the day and ventured out to find food and water during the night. If this trap was triggered, those fanatics could have a sumptuous meal. The fanatical followers heard Forbes and must be on their way now. However, their situation was not beyond hope. Otherwise, Lin Ke would not be so calm. Little treasure, dig and loosen the sand from the side while I try to pull Forbes up. Forbes, take a deep breath. Let's give it another shot. Sand Condor, lower your altitude, and monitor the fanatical followers who are coming over. As soon as I give the order, blow at them with engulfing sand. Lin Ke gave out 3 orders in a row. Treasure Hunter Rat, Forbes, and Sand Condor all started moving. Treasure Hunter Rat buried its head close to where the trap was and started digging. Lin Ke tugged at Forbes's arm with both his hands, trying to pull him out. Sand Condor was originally napping as it positioned and hovered in the air. After hearing Lin Ke's order, it immediately opened its eyes and quietly lowered its altitude, closing in on the fanatics. Treasure Hunter Rat quickly dug a hole and immediately used it as a starting point, digging up sand furiously to untie Forbes. Is the trap you dug useful? Can it catch any prey? That's right. Our stomachs are in your hands. Don't play around with us. Believe me. I was a hunter for 2 years before following the cult. The water level of the Grand Canal is shallow at night, so animals will definitely come here to look for water. This trap took more than half an hour to complete. I can't be shooting myself in the foot, right? Just look forward to eating some game tonight. I believe you this time. If we can't eat any game tonight, you won't be able to get out of our tent tomorrow. As soon as this was said, everyone's headsets were filled with waves of strange-sounding laughter. The Machinery Holy Cult's fanatical followers also had a hard time in the gobi. Machinery City's sphere of influence was in this desolate gobi. Hence, they could only live in the gobi. If it weren't for their worship of machinery and desire to join the cult, nobody would stay in this deserted place for a few years. Ah! Everyone was laughing and cursing. Suddenly, it felt like someone had pressed the pause button. The laughter stopped, and so did the cursing. All 5 of them froze in place, pricking their ears. By the way, did you hear anything just now? I heard it faintly. The sound seems to have come from behind. I heard it too, it seems to be a wail. Wait. Could it be that our trap was triggered? As soon as these words were said, everyone's eyes lit up at the same time. Like a mink who had seen a chicken, they all turned and retraced their steps. They were chatting happily as they walked. The wail was quite loud and clear. From my 2 years of experience as a hunter, this prey is definitely not small. Haha, apart from sand scorpions and geckos, I haven't eaten meat or fish for almost a year. We already got the prey, and the trap is a ready-made fire pit. Let's have a barbecue tonight. Will you still doubt me in the future? No, we don't dare to. You are now the boss. During the day, we look towards the leader of the team for guidance. At night, you are the real decision maker. Mars, you are the closest to the trap and have been pretty quiet. Are you preparing to enjoy the feast by yourself? What are you talking about? Am I that kind of person? I'm hurrying over to see what game it is. There was heavy breathing from the walkie-talkie. The remaining 4 were also walking towards the trap, pricking their ears as they waited for Mars's report. But at this moment, a wave of noisy howling came from the walkie-talkie. It was as though ghosts were weeping and wolves were howling. Next came the noise of gravel clattering. Just when they thought it was a signal problem, Mars's voice came from the walkie-talkie. Bah, bah. Why do we still have sandstorms in the Gobi at night? Mars covered his eyes with both hands. Plenty of sand was flying into his mouth as he spoke. He was originally approaching the trap, but a gust of wind inexplicably traveled over halfway through his journey, blurring his vision. The searchlight's light couldn't even penetrate 1 meter as though a sandstorm was sweeping across the entire Gobi. Mars steeled himself and passed through the violent wind vortex. He turned his head and shone at it with the searchlight, finding that it was a cyclone of 4 to 5 meters in diameter. This is really weird. Why is there such a large cyclone on the ground at night? Mars murmured as he continued to walk towards the trap. It was very common for cyclones to appear in the Gobi, but they usually only occurred during the day. Their diameters were at most 1 or 2 meters. Mars had never seen such a large cyclone before. However, this was not important. What was more tempting than a barbecue on a cold night in the Gobi? Mars shone his searchlight thoroughly as though he was searching for something on the ground. Soon, he saw a black hole about 1 meter in diameter where his light passed. Stepping forward quickly, Mars shone the searchlight into the trap, and his face suddenly changed. The trap is empty. There is no prey. The walkie-talkies descended into silence. No sound was heard. 1 second later. Ha ha ha. Mars, your joke isn't funny at all. If there are no prey in the trap, that means it must have been hidden by you. Please, tell us what kind of good stuff it is. My stomach has already started growling. Mars had a puzzled and incredulous look on his face. The trap was clearly triggered. Why is there nothing? The most important thing is that the others do not believe me. Mars slowly enunciated his words. I'll say it again. The trap had been triggered, but there really is no prey here. The others were all taken aback when they heard Mars's solemn tone. This fellow does not sound like he is joking. But how could this be possible? The trap was triggered, and we heard it. How could there be no prey? Wait. We will be arriving shortly. Soon, the other 4 people gathered at the location and saw the empty trap. I'm really not joking. I don't have a place to hide the prey. Mars raised his mechanical bracer and spun around. There was really nowhere for him to hide anything. The fanatical follower who laid the trap squatted on the ground, holding his searchlight as he buried his head. There is no blood on the barbs, but the trap wall has been trampled on. There are signs of digging at the edge of the trap. The fanatical follower pulled his head out of the trap and shone his searchlight around it. Hey! The fanatical follower saw a clear trail of dragging beside the trap. As the searchlight continued to shine further, a few messy shoe prints appeared at the end of the trail. Cross-grain sole, non-slip rubber, and zigzag stripes about 1 centimeter wide. This seems like the Wastelands Gang mercenaries' military boots. As soon as the words came out, the 5 trembled as their eyes brightened. It must be the agents from the Wastelands Gang who are here for infiltration. It will definitely be a great achievement if we can catch them. Maybe we can all enter Machinery City. The searchlight continued to shine further. The messy shoe prints had become orderly, and 4 shoe prints extended a trail into the distance. There are 2 agents in total. SHHH. We must not talk about this. If we mention this, the other teams will want a share of the pie. By then, we won't get any reward out of this. There are only 2 agents, the 5 of us can take them down easily. The 5 quickly reached a consensus. This matter should never be disclosed so that others could not take this opportunity away from them. Turn the searchlights to the lowest luminosity. We must not alert other teams. Let's give chase by following these shoe prints. Under the double excitement of experiencing a crisis and surviving through it, Forbes's body trembled uncontrollably. Forbes quickly came up alongside Lin Ke, repeatedly gasping as he said, "Boss, you saved my life from the Grim Reaper. From now on, you are my leader, and I will follow you for the rest of my life." Is there a need to? Although there were some small troubles along the way, the situation is still far from offering yourself for marriage as a form of gratitude. Lin Ke didn't think this was a big problem. With treasure hunter Rat and Sand Condor working with him already, he was not stumped by this unexpected situation. Forbes had a serious expression as he quickly ran in front of Lin Ke. "Boss, I am serious. This is a century-old tradition of my tribe. Since you've saved my life, I will spend the rest of my life repaying this kindness. Although it was a small effort on boss's part to help me, this is a great debt of gratitude to me. Forbes's loyalty to you has reached 100 points. Forbes has requested to be your servant. Accept/reject." Lin Ke looked at Forbes's serious expression, who looked like he wouldn't take no for an answer. "Okay, I accept your loyalty." 5s. Chapter 12, No one could walk out of this valley alive. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Forbes has become your servant. Lin Ke patted Forbes on the shoulder and said, "Okay, can we continue on our journey now?" Forbes hurriedly nodded and followed Lin Ke contentedly. Squawk, squawk, squawk. Before the 2 of them could take a few steps, Sand Condor passed by from low altitude, bringing the latest news to Lin Ke. The machinery fanatics were right on their trail, following their shoe prints. They just started pursuing us. It's a bit slower than I expected. Okay, got it. Sand Condor, conceal yourself properly by flying at high altitude. I will reach out to you if necessary. Sand Condor quietly flew into the sky and disappeared into the night. Forbes was a little flustered, and his face was full of self-blame. However, his dark skin blended into the night perfectly. It was difficult for Lin Ke to see this expression. Lin Ke had long anticipated that the believers of Machinery Holy Cult would be on their tail. After all, such a big trap had been triggered. There were even shoe prints next to it. Moreover, they were just 2 people, only fools would not give chase. They would be better off if they were barefoot. However, they were wearing the Wasteland Gang mercenaries' military boots. The solace patterns were clearly identifiable. They were most likely regarded as members of the Wastelands Gang. Although both the Machinery Holy Cult and the Wastelands Gang were powerful forces, there was friction between them, and they didn't deal with each other. Suddenly, 2 people from the Wastelands gang were found going deep into the hinterland tonight. For these enthusiastic followers who dreamt of raising their status every day, this was no less than a lottery prize from the heavens. As long as they could catch these 2 from the Wastelands gang, they would be deemed as having made great contributions to the cult and would be able to set foot into Machinery City. From a lowly follower that had been toiling and patrolling all day to being able to soar into the Machinery City. Let alone a machinery fanatic, even Lin Ke himself would have given chase. Lin Ke already thought of this when he was pulling out the carrot earlier. Therefore, he already made preparations. He took out the satellite phone. After pressing a few buttons, it produced a string of coordinates. 300, 236, 467. These coordinates were the coordinates of Weeping Valley, the end of Machinery Holy Cult's sphere of influence, also the destination of Lin Ke's journey. It was okay if this group of machinery fanatics gave up after chasing for a while. If they did not, Lin Ke guaranteed that they would not be able to walk out of Weeping Valley alive. Boss, should we walk faster? Machinery Holy Cult is chasing us. Lin Ke was not flustered. Instead, he asked, were all the buckets filled when we passed the Grand Canal just now? All filled. Don't worry, boss. Open your backpack now. Eat and drink whatever you want. When Forbes heard this, his legs trembled, and he almost knelt down. He said tearfully, Boss, do you intend to let me have a good meal so that I will not have any regrets and not be a starving ghost after I die? Lin Ke shook his head helplessly. This fellow does not eat much but thinks a lot. If you are not interested in eating, give them to me. Forbes smiled when he heard those words, revealing his shiny front teeth. He quickly took out the beef, energy bar, compressed biscuits, and water from his backpack. He served Lin Ke with all his heart and gave him whatever he wanted. Okay, keep a little bit of drinking water. The rest is yours. You are to eat everything within an hour. Upon hearing this, Forbes opened his mouth and was completely stunned. There is so much food, enough to last me 3 days if I were to eat frugally. I have to finish everything now? What's the matter? Are you disobeying my first order? I'll eat. Although Forbes could not understand the reasoning behind the order, it did not prevent him from executing it. After Forbes had finished eating, Lin Ke gradually began to speed up. After crossing Goria Grand Canal, Weeping Valley was not far away. They could replenish energy by eating and drinking, it would also reduce their carry load. If they hurried, they could reach Weeping Valley at 2 or 3 in the morning. Lin Ke knew Machinery Holy Cult very well. For machinery fanatics, be it their body-implanted microchips or exoskeleton armors, these were crudely added to their bodies to enhance their combat effectiveness. There were no improvements in terms of speed. When it came to speed, it was considered pretty good if they could keep pace with the lightly loaded Lin Ke. Lin Ke also had the help of Sand Condor's Eagle Eyes and Treasure Hunter Rat's metal detection as insurance. They monitored the machinery fanatics' every move. This was what Lin Ke was counting on. The machinery fanatics followed the shoe prints with their faint light. The shoe prints are evenly spaced. They probably do not know about us. The fanatics had excitement in their voices. As long as they sped up their pace, they would surely catch up with the Wastelands gang agents. They actually went deep into the hinterland. These 2 agents must have a special mission. We shall capture them alive and bring them back for torture and interrogation. It will definitely be a great achievement if we can pry out their sinister plans from their mouths. This achievement will be so great they will definitely have to give us another reward apart from allowing us to enter Machinery City. The excitement of these people was beyond words. They were already picturing the enviable eyes of others when they set foot into Machinery City. The machinery fanatics were now like donkeys with a carrot hanging in front of them. They knew that their target was right in front. Thus, they kept on charging forward. Quick, look! What is this? Mars was at the front, responsible for the scouting module. He suddenly came across a few package wrappings beside the footprints. When he picked them up, he realized these were the wrappings for compressed biscuits and energy bars specially manufactured by the Wastelands gang. This discovery was like injecting an energy booster into the 5 of them. Sure enough, it is indeed Wastelands gang agents who are in a hurry. They are even eating in the middle of the night to replenish their energy. It must be a long journey for them, and they must have an important mission to complete. Quick, let's speed up our pace. Mars folded and kept the package wrappers. These would become the evidence in their quest to pursue the Wastelands gang agents and thwart their sinister plans. This is already my limit. You can charge ahead since you have a lighter load. However, remember to ensure a linkage distance of 200 meters. The captain of the team wore exoskeleton armor. Although his special mechanized structure allowed him to carry a load many times his weight, it had no other benefits. Sprinting was absolutely impossible for him. The basic microchips focused on joint operations. Each person in the team was responsible for a specific module. Within a 200-meter range, the 5 basic microchips that had different functions would exchange data using a unifying algorithm, forming an integrated core capable of processing offensive and defensive scenarios. It would then provide assistance and optimized solutions to these fanatics. Okay, let's move ahead to check out the situation first. Mars, who was in charge of scouting, and the assaulter stepped forward. They pulled away from the team and accelerated their pursuit. The two followed the footprints and rushed to the front, keeping an exact 200 meters from the troops behind. Mars pursued all the way. He saw the footprints' pace on the gobi gradually increasing and hurriedly relayed this information to the rear. Squeak, squeak. Treasure Hunter Rat sensed the metallic aura and immediately informed Lin Ke. Lin Ke reached out and rubbed Treasure Hunter Rat's little head. He was composed and even had a smile on his face. Boss, are the people from Machinery Holy Cult here? Forbes had become smarter now. He knew that something was happening whenever Treasure Hunter Rat or Sand Condor spoke. Don't worry. They are still 1 kilometer away. Moreover, this is already their limit. Little Treasure only detected 2 auras, indicating that only the 2 fanatics with light equipment went to the front. Since they had a lighter load, they were able to quicken their pace. However, this was all they could do. Although the basic microchips improved their capabilities, it also had drawbacks. The 5 were like ants on a rope. No matter what, they dared not leave the 200-meter data transmission range, which virtually reduced their mobility. This situation was indeed what Lin Ke had expected. The 2 at the front hid and appeared intermittently but could not close the gap further. They remained stuck 1 kilometer away. The temperature in the gobi gradually decreased in the middle of the night, but Lin Ke and Forbes only felt a little cold. The previous meal provided them with a lot of energy, enough to support them in traveling long distances and resisting the cold. On the other hand, a large portion of the 5 fanatics' enthusiasm had been extinguished by the chill. They were panting hard as they followed behind. Why are these 2 people still continuing their journey north? Are they going to Weeping Valley? What do these people of the Wastelands gang plan to do when they get to Sand City? Are they going to ally with Sand City to do something? As soon as they thought of this, Mars and his other teammate had a bad feeling. Maybe they are going to defect. Regardless of what they are up to, we can pry the secret out of their mouths as long as they are captured. The more we pry out of their mouths, the better our promotions. The 2 parties had stayed about 1 kilometer apart from each other. Lin Ke looked at the coordinates on the satellite phone and saw that they were getting closer to the designated location. Under the starlight from the starry sky, a dark valley could vaguely be seen in the distance, covering half of the Milky Way over the horizon. The shape of the valley was outlined by the starlight in the background. Lin Ke looked at Weeping Valley and couldn't help grinning. Here's the stage for our performance. Although Weeping Valley was not an instance 1, a special area in computer games that generates a new copy of the location for each group, or for a certain number of players, that enters the area, it was a place which Lin Ke knew by heart. If one simply regarded this place as the boundary between two forces, that would be too simple. Forbes, hurry up. We can get rid of them once we reach Weeping Valley. Forbes was already exhausted, but his eyes lit up when he heard this. He gasped and asked, "Boss, will they stop chasing us when we reach Weeping Valley?" Lin Ke shook his head. He loaded the Glock pistol in his hand. "No, I will kill them all once we reach Weeping Valley." 4S. Chapter 13, The Ghost of Howling Ancient Castle, 1, 2. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. They've really gone to Weeping Valley. What do we do? Do we still go after them? Mars's breathing was heavy and ragged. The stars shone down on and lit up Weeping Valley's structure. If they walked any further in front, they would exit Machinery Holy Cult's zone of influence. Within Machinery Holy Cult's territory, they had nothing to be afraid of. They could call for reinforcements from Machinery City anytime they wanted. However, they were very far from Goria Grand Canal now and were at the periphery of Machinery Holy Cult's zone of influence. Even if they called for reinforcements from Machinery City, they wouldn't receive any. Go after them. Are we going to return without accomplishing anything when we've already pursued them all the way here? I don't believe that they don't need any rest when they've already walked for a whole night. They don't know that someone is following behind them yet, so they'll definitely rest a little when they reach Weeping Valley. Our chance will come at that time. I also agree that we should continue to pursue them. A chance like this comes only once in 1,000 years. It's now or never. 3. The few of them engaged in a lively discussion, and they all expressed their opinions of continuing with the pursuit. After gritting their teeth and walking for a good half-night in the chilly winds and the bleak Gobi, wouldn't they be fools if they decided to turn back after pursuing them all the way here? Mars and the commando unit members were the first to reach Weeping Valley. They didn't act rashly and alert the enemy. They waited outside the valley for their other 3 teammates instead. I was right. Instead of directly crossing the valley, they went into the valley's abandoned castle to set up camp and rest. Wait a moment. We still need a minute to get into position. We'll surround the castle together after we reach. Smiles appeared on the 5 men's faces in unison. As long as this operation succeeded, they would be able to bid farewell to the gloomy and desolate Gobi and enter the Holy Land that they dreamed and longed for, Machinery City. In no time, the 5 men assembled and headed as one toward the abandoned castle on top of Weeping Valley. Look, there's light in the castle. We've locked onto their position. The 5 men arrived at the bottom of the castle. Through the broken windows and gaps, they saw the light emitted by the blazing red campfire. Fantastic, we've even saved the time needed to look for them now. Mars went a full circle around the castle before returning to the castle's main entrance. He said, "Scouting complete. Including the front, back, and side doors, this castle has a total of 3 entrances." The captain mused silently for a moment. Then, he said, "Assaulter and medic are to enter through the front door. The scout and I will outflank them at the back door. The logistics officer doesn't need to go too deep into the castle. Just guard the side door and prevent the enemy from escaping. Now, activate your goggles. Operation officially begins now." The 5 men put on their transparent goggles in unison. At once, the protective goggles emitted a weak, icy blue glow and displayed various complex numerical data and assistive functions. Assaulter, medic, scout, artillery, and logistics, 5 different basic microchip modules had combined to carry out real-time analysis. The operation had officially begun. After the captain assigned them their tasks, everyone moved out at once. After years of erosion, the wooden door at the castle's back entrance had already thoroughly decayed. One could only faintly make out how glorious the castle used to be from the door's rust-spotted metal frame. Mars and the captain carefully circumvented the door and passed through a garden which had already been reduced to sand, becoming desolate at the back of the castle. Through the cracks in the castle walls, they could vaguely see the light of fire coming from a higher floor. "Ha, they've even hidden themselves on a higher floor. Mars couldn't help but scoff softly. Then, he asked, Captain, why is there a castle and manor at a precipitous valley like this? That, you've asked the right person. I really do know the history behind this castle. They conversed at extremely low volumes. In fact, they didn't even need to open their mouths that wide when they spoke. Their protective goggles absorbed their voices via bone conduction and transmitted them into the earphones of the teammate beside them. This almost silent communication method could minimize sound transmission range the greatest and was convenient when carrying out special missions. Tell me about it, boss. To Mars, the Wasteland's gang agents hiding inside the castle were already in the bag. They had no way of escaping. Thus, he couldn't help but relax his attitude, and he requested the captain to fill him in on the castle's history as he followed him about. After all, a machinery holy cult fanatic like them didn't have many chances of coming to a sensitive zone like Weeping Valley. In the beginning, this castle was. The same thing was also taking place inside the castle. A dancing campfire burned and blazed in the center of the castle's main hall, firewood crackling loudly in the blazing flames. It was said that fire could cleanse and purify all, but at this moment, only less than half of the grand hall was lit. The dark devoured all the remaining areas. Darkness reflected on the wall shapes and sizes that could suffocate a person. At first glance, one would even think that there was some kind of description-defying ancient behemoth in the castle. However, when the scene shifted to the area beside the campfire, what the orange-red flames lit up was a somewhat cute and silly kid instead. Forbes swayed and trembled as he sat in front of the campfire, the fire reflecting a red light on his tanned face. Boss, this castle looks like it has been around for a very long time. As Lin Ke refilled the ammo clip with bullets, he replied, this castle has roughly over 100 years of history. It used to be a certain desert prince's temporary imperial residence in the past. When the Day of Reckoning descended 42 years ago, the prince was abandoned after he fled from the castle. After that, an intense war broke out between Freedom Federation and Machinery Holy Cult near Weeping Valley. This castle was used as a temporary headquarters and suffered bombardment in the war. When the war ended, both parties established a great rapport and treated Weeping Valley as a buffer zone. Since then, this place has been left to waste. Forbes's jaw dropped, and he examined the barren walls around them closely. He couldn't help but sigh. I never thought that I, Forbes, would also have the opportunity to stay in a prince's temporary imperial residence one day. When Lin Ke was done refilling the ammo clip, Treasure Hunter Rat came over to him and started squeaking. The enemy has already entered the castle. Snap! Lin Ke loaded the magazine into the gun smoothly. Then, he got up and said, Forbes, no matter what you hear later, behave and stay here. Don't go anywhere. Do you hear me? Forbes was just about to reply when he suddenly heard the sharp, distorted scraping sounds that rusty metal produced when they moved in the wind. The sound passed through the empty spaces in the abandoned castle and traveled all the way up, frightening him so much that he got up from where he was at once. Forbes was so scared that he visibly broke out into a cold sweat. The beads of perspiration glittered like red rubies in the light produced by the fire. Boss, actually, I can also help. Lin Ke raised his hand and stopped him resolutely. You will already be helping me out by staying here. When he saw that Forbes was about to speak again, Lin Ke hurriedly supplemented his previous words and said, I mean it. You're acting as bait when you stay here. If we can off the fanatics this time, all credit goes to you. Forbes's eyes widened to their limit at once when he heard that he was supposed to act as bait, and his eyes almost fell out of their sockets in shock. Don't worry. Those fanatics can't possibly reach you alive. You can just rest assured, sit here, and rest. All right, little treasure, let's go. After Lin Ke spoke, he turned around in a clean and sharp motion and vanished into the darkness with Treasure Hunter Rat. Forbes wanted to go after him, but the castle was very big, and the layout went around in circles. Everywhere that the light in the main hall couldn't reach was shrouded in pitch-black darkness. Forbes didn't know where he could go, even if he wanted to leave. He was so frightened that he started pacing about while gripping his kitchen knife. Lin Ke held the Glock in his hand. Despite not having any light, he walked about in the dark without any problems whatsoever and came and went like the wind. If the green-walled maze in the city ruins was Lin Ke's first attempt at luring monsters and running a dungeon solo, then Weeping Valley's howling ancient castle was the place that propelled him to fame. As he had mentioned in the castle history that he had narrated to Forbes, this place had once been the Freedom Federation's headquarters. It had been where they issued commands from when they were fighting the Machinery Holy Cult. However, clashes and conflicts would gradually arise between the Freedom Federation and Machinery Holy Cult in half a year's time, and this place would become the front line of war again. Just like in the green-walled maze, Lin Ke was so familiar with the abandoned castle that he could go a full circle around it with his eyes closed. Mere darkness of the night naturally couldn't stand in his way. However, if one thought that that was the extent of Lin Ke's abilities, then they would be underestimating the meaning of the words propelled him to fame. Currently, the 5 Machinery Holy Cult fanatics had already entered the castle. In the past, Lin Ke would have needed to listen out for them in order to determine their positions or make an appearance to lure them somewhere. However, with Treasure Hunter Rat's ability to pinpoint their locations now, he didn't need to go to so much trouble anymore. He only needed to appear without anyone noticing, ambush them while their guard was down, and retreat right after he was done attacking. Appear quietly and refrain from shooting one. Based on the information provided by Treasure Hunter Rat, Lin Ke now knew what the 5 men were planning. If the 5 of them come at me together, they might still be able to give me some pressure. However, by choosing to split up and outflank me, they are practically sending themselves to death's door. His very first target was the back door. Out of the 2 men sneaking in from the back door, one was an artilleryman armed with heavy firepower while the other, if all went well, was likely a scout. The heavy firepower artilleryman was covered in exoskeleton armor and also carried heavy artillery weapons. Thus, he had the highest number of metal components on him. At the front door were the assaulter and medic, while the logistics officer was in charge of guarding the side door. Therefore, there could only be one last possibility for the person following the artilleryman, the scout. Once he understood the logic behind basic microchip battle tactics, coupled with the information from Treasure Hunter Rat, it was as if Lin Ke had personally seen the 5 men entering the castle with his own eyes and were totally clear about their identities. Among the 5-man team, the artilleryman armed with heavy artillery and the scout with the scouting module posed the biggest threat to Lin Ke. Therefore, Lin Ke decided to take out those 2 first. Once he had taken out the artilleryman that possessed the strongest firepower and the scout, the remaining members would become headless chickens that he could take out anytime he wanted. With 51 rounds of 9mm bullets, taking out 2 level 10 Machinery Holy Cult fanatics. These were more than enough. Lin Ke had deliberately set up the fire on the castle's 4th floor main hall. Its exact purpose was to lure the 5 men into heading upstairs and conducting a thorough search. All right, time to wait for the fishes to bite. When Lin Ke reached an area that they would definitely pass by on the 2nd floor, a sly smile appeared at the corners of his lips. Although the fanatics Captain and Mars were already very careful, it was still very easy for them to accidentally step on broken debris, unwittingly creating various rustling noises. This greatly troubled the 2 of them. Mars couldn't help but complain, if we continue to make noises like this upstairs, we'll probably be discovered before we get right underneath their noses. They passed through the junk-filled 1st floor and came to the stairwell. In the past, both the staircase and the wooden flooring had been meticulously maintained every year. However, everyone was gone after the Day of Reckoning, and the building was abandoned. The place had already fallen into thorough disrepair after a whole 42 years had passed. But the wooden flooring didn't weather and decay, it could still bear a human's weight. One could only sigh in admiration at how extravagant the prince had been back then. The flooring used only the most superior grade of wood and was still hardy even after being abandoned for close to half a century. Of course, if there wasn't the annoying creaking from their walking, it would be even more wonderful. Fortunately, the decibel count that the protective goggles displayed wasn't very high, so they didn't worry about alerting the enemy. The two of them tiptoed up the spiral staircase and came to the second floor. When the searchlight on Mars's shoulder shone upon the castle's long and narrow corridor, both he and the captain shivered in shock, gasping sharply as their nerves wound up tightly. 3S. Chapter 14, The Ghost of Howling Ancient Castle, 2. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Cobwebs filled the old, run-down corridor, and several suits of cavalry armor from the Middle Ages stood on both sides of the long and narrow corridor. Some were undamaged and stood straight and erect, while some were severed at the waist and had fallen all over the place. When light suddenly shone upon them, the two men thought that a team of live human soldiers was standing by and ready for battle here, which gave the two a fright. Apart from that, several small, framed oil paintings hung on the corridor walls. Originally, they should have been brimming with artistic aura, but they actually carried a hint of creepiness in this dilapidated and abandoned environment. Mars patted his chest. His heart had leaped all the way up to his throat the instant he saw the humanoid figures just now, and he had almost fired. What's there to panic about? A bunch of cavalry armor has scared you that much? The captain, who also served as the artilleryman, rolled his eyes at Mars. That fellow's shocked reaction had also given him a shock just now. 1. Sorry. I got too worked up over nothing. Mars turned around and apologized profusely. However, when the light beams shone upon the captain's face, what he saw was an unnatural redness on his face instead. Boss, actually. Were you also frightened just now? As though he had discovered some kind of secret, Mars winked and wriggled his eyebrows at the captain. It was simply too funny that he had actually gotten hold of blackmail material on the usually prim and steady captain. The captain's eyes widened as large as bells, and he fiercely replied, "Scout properly and stop saying nonsense like that." Due to the cavalry armor from the Middle Ages lining the corridor sides, there wasn't much space for them to walk. The artilleryman wore exoskeleton armor and also carried heavy artillery, so he looked terribly big and bulky as he walked down the narrow corridor. Like a pig dancing ballet, he carefully maintained his balance and guarded against bumping into the old, dust-covered suits of armor with any part of himself. Should he knock over the cavalry armor, the resulting crash would be clearly audible even outside the castle. By right, Mars should have been walking in front, but it was simply too easy for him to end up blocking the artilleryman's line of sight. Thus, he could only follow behind the captain. The Fanatic's captain led the way in front. As he held the heavy firepower light machine gun in both hands, he walked to the end of the corridor with his eyes fixed in front of him. Mars, the scout, followed behind him. As his line of sight was obstructed, he couldn't survey the situation in the corridor, and his eyes could only sweep left and right erratically. Yet it was exactly a sweeping glance like this that made Mars shiver all over, and he couldn't help but grab a corner of the captain's clothes. "Captain, take a look at the oil paintings on the wall. Why are they so creepy?" Mars had a deep frown on his face, and chills were going down his spine. The artilleryman walking in front turned slightly, and the searchlight on his shoulder shone on the wall. When he saw the small oil painting hanging on the wall, his facial expression changed into one similar to that of Mars. He looked at it for a while before glancing at the other small oil paintings. The captain's countenance turned more and more solemn. "Captain, have you also discovered something wrong with them?" The artilleryman nodded. These small oil paintings were simply too weird. All of them were head portraits with savage expressions on their faces. All the facial expressions in the paintings were rather bizarre. Some had mouths that reached all the way to the ears, and scarlet red tongues lolled from their mouths while their eyes stared in front of them in fixation. Some had blank, empty facial expressions and had only one eye, some were even strange portraits with distorted facial features and eyeballs hanging from the corners of the lips. Although these paintings were incredibly weird, one would realize that they had something in common upon close inspection. No matter whether Mars and the captain were moving to the front or the back, it seemed like the eyes in all the portraits were focused on them all the time. This discovery made Mars's and the captain's hair stand on end. "All right, stop looking. Our mission is to capture the Wasteland's gang agents. What's the use of studying something like that?" However, despite saying so, a shiver still went through the artilleryman cum captain after he spoke nonetheless. 1. Strangeness lurked in every part of the abandoned castle. "Okay, let's go, let's go." Mars had also been talking to the captain in a bid to distract himself. Before he resumed walking, he cast a suspicious glance behind him. When he saw that nothing had changed, he breathed a sigh of relief and consoled himself continuously. Perhaps that Prince was fond of strange, abstract-style paintings like these in the past. After this little episode, the two men tried their best to ensure that they kept their eyes fixed in front of them. They stopped looking left and right at those weird portraits that easily interfered with their mental states. Behind them, in the shadows where their light couldn't reach, an oil painting silently opened. An arm with a pistol in its grip stretched out from within, followed closely by a person's head. Although the searchlight on the artilleryman's shoulder shone in front of him, the light it emitted could, nevertheless, still clearly outline the two men's silhouettes. Lin Ke checked the machinery holy cult fanatics' statuses first. In accordance with the targets and your levels, the following information has been obtained. Name, unknown. Race, human. Level, 10. Class, machinist. Status, machinery holy cult fanatic. Health points, 120/120. Energy points, 60/60ths. Stats, power, 6, agility, 7, endurance, 12, intelligence, 6. Others, unknown. Equipment, basic electronic scouting goggles, white. Others, unknown. Special abilities, basic machinery manufacturing, level 3. Others, unknown. Appraisal, a machinist whose theoretical knowledge is relatively poor. After looking through the data, Lin Ke now had an understanding of his enemies. He gripped the Glock 17 with both hands, closed one eye, and took aim. Bang, bang, bang. He fired thrice in quick succession. You've used the Glock 17 pistol and struck a machinery holy cult fanatic, causing 27 damage points. 3. Out of the 3 shots fired, one had struck its target. Lin Ke shrank back at once and closed the oil painting along the way. Mars, who had taken a bullet in the shoulder, let out a muffled grunt. The fanatic's captain turned around right away. His searchlight lit up the whole corridor, but nobody was in sight. "How are you?" The captain aimed the light machine gun in his hands at the corridor and kept a lookout for danger, his mental state taut and tense. Mars pressed his hand against his shoulder and gritted his teeth as he replied, "My shoulder took a hit, but it's not a lethal wound, so it isn't much of an issue." "Have you found the person that fired?" The captain didn't dare to look behind him. He kept his eyes fixed on the corridor and searched for any traces or hints of clues. The footprints on the floor were theirs, they had formed when they were walking over just now. Apart from that, there weren't any other traces. The ceiling was also flat and even throughout. He couldn't see any place up there that anyone could hide in. Yet the more that was so, the more weirded out he became. Could the gunshots have manifested out of thin air? Or maybe the one that fired at them was a ghost? Mars noticed the captain shaking his head. He also craned his neck and looked at the corridor, but even he couldn't find any traces or hints of clues despite being a scout. Their companion's urgent-sounding voice rang out in their earphones. "Hello? I heard gunshots. Has something gone wrong over at your side? I've been hit by a bullet, but we didn't see the enemy. Is the wound serious?" Do you need me to come over to dress your wound and provide treatment? It's just the shoulder, so it's not an issue. You guys, guard the front door well. We can take care of the problem here, replied the captain suddenly in a low and steady voice. The oil painting in front opened silently, and Lin Ke poked his head out again. Bang, bang, bang. This time, 2 out of the 3 shots connected. One struck the waist, while the other struck the calf. 2. Mars, who had suffered 3 shots, held his hand over the bullet wound at his waist and slowly collapsed as he leaned against the wall. The 2 men were now extremely on edge and easily frightened after what had happened. This time, the gunshot sounds had come from the front of the corridor. Mars laid on the floor, grunting and whimpering. The gunshots from both times were fired by a Glock 17. That's the Wastelands gang mercenaries' standard weapon. There's no doubt about it, it should be those 2 agents. Don't talk now. The artilleryman dragged the suit of cavalry armor beside him over in front of him. Then, he immediately turned around, grabbed another suit of cavalry armor, and used it to shield Mars. With cavalry armor shielding their front and back, it would be very hard for bullets to hit them after they had hidden behind the armor. I'll look at the back. You look in front. Back to back, the 2 men guarded a direction each. The enemy came and went like a shadow as if they were a ghost. There weren't even any footprints on the floor, and neither did they make any sound. How absurd! Mars held one hand over his wound while his other hand held a gun with much difficulty. The pain from the wound at his waist was so bad that perspiration drenched him. Blood constantly flowed through the gaps between his fingers as if it were sand that was impossible for one to get a grip of. The 2 men's nerves were wound tight. A frantic voice also rang out in their earphones. What's the situation, exactly? Do you want us to come over and provide backup? The captain kept his calm and instructed, Medic, come here. Assaulter, guard the front door well and don't run about. Keep an eye on the situation in case the enemy decides to break out of the siege. Mars had suffered 3 successive gunshots. The wound at his waist was the most serious, and blood kept flowing from it. If they delayed dressing the wound any further, he really would die from pure blood loss. Hang in there. The medic will reach very soon. The captain leaned back slightly and nudged Mars upon sensing that his breathing was slowing down, signaling to him to stay awake. In the corridor, every second of their confrontation with thin air was pure torture. The enemy came and went like a ghost. In fact, they didn't even make any sound. Although they had cavalry armor around them acting as cover, their nerves were still as tightly wound as ever. Rustle, rustle, rustle. They could hear footsteps from downstairs getting nearer to them. The captain's eyes lit up brightly, and he hurriedly said, Mars, hang in there. The medic is on his way up. Mars tried to move slightly and shifted toward the wall a little. His face flushed red, and his breathing also turned quick and ragged. I'll be right there. Wait for me. The medic's frantic voice traveled over from downstairs. Right on the heels of it was the sound of someone stepping on the wooden staircase. Thump, 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 thump. The captain couldn't help but remind him, be careful and keep a lookout for your own safety. Alright, the medic was still in the midst of replying when spark flashes suddenly erupted at the stairwell. Bang, 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 bang. Like a heavy thunderstorm, gunshots from a Glock 17 rang out without even a moment's pause. A brief moment later, only the sporadic sound of things dropping and rolling about could be heard coming from the stairwell. Then, there was silence. The artilleryman's and Mars's eyes widened so much that their eyes were close to splitting at the edges. They didn't even dare to breathe a little heavier. Jason? Jason? 2. The Fanatic's captain called out twice tentatively, but no response came from downstairs. The silence made their hearts quiver. Fear of the unknown shrouded the 2 men's hearts, unable to dissipate even after a long time. What happened? Is Jason dead? An alarmed and bewildered voice sounded in the earphones. We've lost Jason. Be careful, everyone. There's something strange about those two Wastelands gang agents. Beads of perspiration formed on the artilleryman's forehead and slid down the silhouette of his cheeks to his jaw. Perspiration pitter-pattered as they dripped onto the floor. With his head raised, Mars leaned against the corridor wall. His originally hopeful eyes gradually darkened, turning dull and blank. The medic was dead. There was no longer any hope of medical treatment for him. He felt utterly despondent. You've killed a machinery holy cult fanatic and gained 500 EXP. Lin Ke took advantage of the opportunity when the medic went up the stairs to stretch his arm out from a gap in the staircase and grab the other party's neck. He pressed the Glock in his hand against the medic's head and fired several shots in quick succession, blasting the other party's head off and killing him before the other party had even realized what was happening. Lin Ke let go of the other party's collar. The medic, who was now thoroughly dead and reduced into a limp mess, fell and rolled down the spiral staircase. Lin Ke opened a secret door and disappeared from the stairwell again. Past the secret door was a tunnel just big enough for a person to go through. It measured less than 2 meters tall and half a meter wide. There were a lot of forks in the tunnel, and they led everywhere. Through the tunnel, one could access any floor and any place in the castle. Along the tunnel were several small, square windows that spanned roughly 30 centimeters wide. At the end of the fork was even a ladder that led to the upper floors. This complex and varied tunnel that allowed one to access any place in the castle was practically like the blood vessels in a human body. They existed everywhere but stayed hidden from sight. Howling Ancient Castle was the place that propelled Lin Ke to fame, and this tunnel was the key to his route to fame. During the start of Destiny's public beta, countless players surged into the game. They had all been randomly assigned to 3 new B-level planets. Among the few 100,000 public beta players in the Wastelands planet, Lin Ke had been the first to discover the secret tunnels in Weeping Valley. He also had a moment of fame in the game forums because he had received a C-level mission in the secret tunnels. However, as the public beta players explored and figured out the tunnels, more and more C-level missions were discovered. Lin Ke's hotness as a trending topic also died down gradually. However, Lin Ke had used the same method to kill countless machinery holy cult fanatics alone by using these secret tunnels. Thinking of besieging him? It was still a guessing game as to who the player would be and who the ones being played were. Lin Ke reloaded his gun as he walked. He came to the end of a fork in the tunnel and smiled lightly as he looked at the manhole above him. He'll probably be very touched if I suddenly appear behind him, right? 4S. Chapter 15, Counting the Rewards. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Like a ghost, Lin Ke slowly climbed up the ladder. He reached out and opened an approximately 10 mm wide crack in the manhole above him. Treasure Hunter Rat, who was on his shoulder, darted out with a whoosh. With its body standing straight, it scanned its surroundings as its little nose sniffed about hard. Squeak, squeak. Lin Ke now knew the precise location of the enemy at the front entrance. The tunnel's secret doors were concealed extremely well, and it was impossible to detect any differences from their outer appearances. Adding to this was the fact that Howling Ancient Castle had been abandoned for close to half a century. Its broken, crumbling walls and rampantly growing weed provided even more cover for the secret doors. Lin Ke quietly climbed out of the secret tunnel. As luck would have it, there just so happened to be a half-meter-tall expanse of weed right in front, providing cover for him. His form perfectly blended into the weed. Through the rustling weed, he could see the assaulter standing guard at the wall beside the castle's front entrance. Little treasure, time for you to get to work. Treasure Hunter Rat stayed close to the wall and crawled forward. Lin Ke had decided to employ the age-old diversion tactic. It might be cliché, but it was also very effective. Very soon, Treasure Hunter Rat came within range of the assaulter. After creating rustling noises in the weed, it quickly retreated. The assaulter, who was currently very tense mentally, subconsciously fired when he heard the unusual sounds coming from the bushes. The pump-action shotgun in his hand fired twice in quick succession. The shotgun shells flew about, shaving off the weeds' tips right away and cutting them down in the middle. "I heard you firing over there. What's the situation?" The captain's urgent inquiry came from the earphones. The assaulter opened the shotgun chamber, took out shells from the ammo belt at his waist, and loaded them into the shotgun. At this point, Treasure Hunter Rat slipped out of the bushes and ran all the way to the small, grey-tiled path in the central lane that led to the front door. When the assaulter saw the rat, he let out a deep breath of air and replied, "Nothing, it's just a rat." Treasure Hunter Rat was very skilled at pretending to be cute. It got up on its hind legs, and its black, shiny little eyes appeared bright and spirited under the stars. Other rats would have been frightened into hiding when they caught sight of humans, but this particular rat was surprisingly bold. It actually dared to meet his eyes while being out in the open. Treasure Hunter Rat stood where it was and seduced the assaulter. When it saw its master silently show up behind the assaulter, it immediately knew that everything was about to end. Just like an indifferent passerby, Treasure Hunter Rat got back down on 4 feet and crossed the grey-tiled path, vanishing into the weed. The next second, a series of rapid pistol gunshots rang out and shook the surroundings. As the saying went, a true rat never turns back to watch a gunfire exchange. -54. -58. -38. 3 enormous critical hit damage indicators appeared above the assaulter. The last shot went directly into excess damage and depleted all of the assaulter's HP. "You've killed a machinery holy cult fanatic and gained 500 EXP. He had taken out another one. Lin K was all smiles now. His EXP bar was so full that it overflowed. Lin K picked up the shotgun on the floor. With its superb close-range destructive capability and ability to kill a human in almost a split second, this thing was practically a must-have when carrying out ambushes. "You've obtained 1 pump-action shotgun and 21 shotgun shells." Lin K didn't loot anything else from the assaulter, mainly because he didn't have anywhere to store them on his body. After he had killed all of the fanatics later, he would call Forbes over and conduct a thorough body search again. Both the assaulter and the medic are dead, while the scout is heavily injured and bleeding. "I'm left with only the artilleryman and the logistics officer now. Which little cutie will be the lucky one next?" Lin K held the shotgun with both hands and entered the castle through the front entrance. Then, he went through a secret door again and began to move. The remaining 3 men were as quiet as mice as their hearts sank to the bottom. They hadn't even caught a glimpse of the enemy, yet there were already 2 dead and 1 injured. The enemy was just like a ghost in the castle, able to appear beside them anytime, anywhere. They had only just spoken with the assaulter over the walkie-talkie when they heard concentrated gunfire breaking out right after. The front entrance wasn't far from the castle. The crisp and clear gunshots constantly echoed inside the old and run-down castle. Every gunshot hammered against their chests, causing their hearts to sink a notch lower each time. "Sean, be careful. It's highly likely that they are on their way to you now." Sean, the logistics officer, hurriedly found a corner to hide in at a flower bed near the side entrance. He felt a lot safer after having something to lean against. He squatted in the corner while gripping a pistol with both hands. The searchlight on his shoulder lit up his field of vision in front. Even the mere rustling of leaves could make his tightly wound emotions snap. While walking inside the secret tunnel, Lin K heard footsteps above him. "He's actually gone to hide in a corner of the wall." Lin K had originally intended to continue the trend of launching an ambush from the back, but that guy had actually escaped by himself in advance. What was he to do? With his previous disembarkation point declared invalid, Lin K looked for other nearby spots in the tunnel. Soon, he found the exit nearest to the logistics officer. It was just that this exit's location was. Lin K's brows drew together slightly. After a moment of contemplation, they smoothed out again. He shrugged and said, "It's your turn to perform again, King of Actors." On his shoulder, Treasure hunter rat let out a long sigh of resignation as if an incredibly heavy load was on its shoulders, pressing down on it and crushing its back. Sigh. I have to sacrifice my looks again. To be honest, treasure hunter rat really wanted to say something to Lin Ke. Being opportunistic and resorting to trickery is not the way to go. Fighting head-on is what makes one a real man instead. It seemed as if time had stopped. Apart from his own breathing, the logistics officer couldn't hear any other sounds. This made him feel as if time passed extremely slowly. It was double torture for the body and the mind. Thump, thump, thump. The logistics officer scrambled to his feet as though he had stepped on a live wire. He had actually heard knocking coming from the rock beneath his butt. With the pistol raised, the logistics officer's eyes bore into the rock. Question marks filled his mind. How could a rock possibly make any sound? The logistics officer lowered his head, stretched his arm out, and pressed the rock. When he knocked against it with his knuckles, he discovered that the sound the rock made was different from the others. It seemed like the rock was hollow. His head snapped back, and his eyes swept across the surroundings, but he didn't discover anything out of the ordinary. It was only then that he reached out and attempted to dig the rock out to see what exactly was going on inside. When he shifted the rock aside and shone the searchlight into the hole, he just so happened to see a tiny, innocent-looking rat. Their eyes met, and great puzzlement appeared in the rat's tiny little eyes. "Captain, I've discovered a tunnel." "A tunnel? How did you find it?" When the captain heard the word tunnel, his mind immediately cleared up. He seemed to know how the enemy had managed to be this enigmatic now. "It's because of a rat. It was knocking the rock underneath me, so I shifted it away when I heard the knocks," replied the logistics officer truthfully. "A rat? A rat?" Before this, the assaulter had been killed precisely because he had seen a rat. A sense of foreboding shrouded the captain's heart. With his eyes widened to the point of splitting, the captain shouted, "Run!" The logistics officer was stunned for a moment when he heard the bellow from the walkie-talkie. Why is he suddenly asking me to run? Just as he was in a daze, a head as well as a pump-action shotgun's two pitch-black muzzles emerged from the hole. Surprise, mother f***er. Boom! The flames coming out of the shotgun muzzles were like fireworks rising into the sky. The next second, the logistics officer's head was blown into pieces, becoming badly mangled. The scattered steel pellets also struck the walkie-talkie at his chest, which emitted an ear-piercing screech. The captain in a stalemate on the second floor sank into silence when he heard the noise from the walkie-talkie after the connection was lost. Another one had died. When the five of them had decided to chase after the agents, they had initially thought that this was a piece of joyous news indicating a promotion and level up. Little did they think that all of them would meet their demise here one by one. Mars, who was leaning against the wall, was deathly pale. His eyes were seemingly shut, and his breathing was almost indiscernible. Half of his body was lying in a pool of blood, and he looked as if he was on his last breath. The aura of death, an oppressive atmosphere, tightly wound nerves, and a creepy ancient castle. The captain was on the brink of a mental breakdown. "Arg, I can't take it anymore." The fanatic's captain kicked the cavalry armor aside with one foot and charged out with his light machine gun raised. Clack, clack, clack. Fire spat out from the muzzles, and bullet shells clattered as they landed on the ground at the side of the gun, producing clinks and clanks. The fanatic's captain screamed and shouted as though he had gone mad. Through the spiral staircase, one could vaguely see sparks of fire. However, his berserk shouting didn't last long. 2 shotgun blasts rang out from downstairs. The light machine gun's spraying stopped. The screams and shouts disappeared. The almost indiscernible sparks of fire also disappeared. Mars's head was tilted to the side, and he felt incredibly despondent. Then, he started to cough violently. His deathly pale cheeks flushed red, and a large amount of blood sprayed from his mouth and nose when he coughed. Toward the end, his throat let out a couple of grunts, and he lost all signs of life. By this point, Lin Ke had exterminated all 5 machinery holy cult fanatics. A total of 2,500 EXP was credited into his accounts. What came next was calling Forbes to come down and search the corpses. After all, there were quite a lot of treasures on these 5 men. When Lin Ke went through the secret tunnel and returned to the main hall on the 4th floor, he discovered Forbes cowering and hiding in the corner with both hands holding his head and his big butt stuck up in the air. He was shaking all over, which also caused the fat on his body to tremble erratically. He looked as springy to the touch as jelly. "I'm back." Upon hearing Lin Ke's simple and mild words, Forbes jumped straight up from where he was, which startled Lin Ke so much that he took a few steps back instead. "Boss, you're back." Forbes was so agitated that he burst into tears. Before this, he had followed Lin Ke's instructions and hid here the whole time. Then, he heard the gunshots in the castle. The gunshots were sporadic, and tragic screams had even sounded as well. While he was concerned about his boss's safety, he was also afraid that the enemy would rush up here. The smile on Lin Ke's face froze, and he pointed to the outside. "They said that you're fatter, so the electricity will last longer if they bring you back as a human battery." Lin Ke lowered his head and patted the back of Forbes's hand with a face full of regret. "Sorry." Blood drained from Forbes's face. Never would he have thought that he would still be unable to avoid the fate of being captured as a human battery after running so far. Forbes sniveled and stretched out his tanned arm to wipe his tears. In a choked voice, he said, "This life of mine belongs to boss anyway. Since I can save boss now, I'm more than happy." Sob, sob. "Why are you crying, then?" "These are tears of joy, tears of happiness." Forbes sobbed the whole way as he followed Lin Ke out of the castle, his back looking bleak and helpless. "All right, we're here." Forbes raised his head. Right away, he became so frightened that his legs turned into jelly, and he almost tripped. On the ground was a machinery holy cult fanatic's headless corpse. There was even blood which had yet to dry on the ground, as well as a strong stench of blood in the air. "Let's get to work." "Get to work? What work?" Forbes's mind hadn't come around yet, and he was still stuck in his sorrow of having to become a human battery and the shock of seeing the corpse in front of him. Remove all the useful things on him. So, I don't have to be a human battery anymore. With the searchlight in his hand, Lin Ke looked at Forbes's tear-stained face and spoke extremely seriously. "I now declare that we have officially escaped the pursuit." Forbes was stunned for a moment. He then wiped his snot with his arm, turned around, and dove toward the headless corpse. Forbes's ferocious expression and forceful movements were such that even Lin Ke couldn't bear to watch him. Judging from Forbes's enthusiasm, one corpse probably won't be enough. Lin Ke silently re-entered the castle and carried out the other corpses. When he saw how Forbes was going at his job with great enthusiasm and great delight, to the extent that perspiration covered his forehead, Lin Ke wiped his brow and asked, "These should be enough, right?" With a resigned expression, Treasure Hunter Rat rested its palms against its tiny little head. It was out of a job now. 5s. Chapter 16, What a Big Move. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. Half an hour later. "Boss, I've organized all of them." Forbes got up suddenly and swung his head to the side. The perspiration in his hair and on his forehead was flung out with a whoosh, and they drew a crystal-clear arc across the air. Lin Ke swiftly took a step back and dodged the beads of perspiration that looked as if someone had flung out a bucket of water. Treasure Hunter Rat stretched out its little paws and made a paw gesture. 6. All 5 machinery holy cult fanatics' corpses had been cleanly and thoroughly looted. Treasure Hunter Rat didn't even need to do a recheck. Forbes arranged all the war spoils into categories and neatly displayed them on the ground. The sight actually looked pretty impressive when light shone on them. A light machine gun, a few pistols, mechanical arms, exoskeleton armor, a medical kit, a logistics trunk, cash amounting to 3,400 wastelands coins, and a box of 10-pack condoms. Yup, and it had even been opened and used before. Forbes raised the box with 10-pack N001 printed on it and curiously asked, "Boss, what's this?" "Judging from the packaging, it looks like gum." This. How am I supposed to explain this?" "This thing is a rubber sheath. As winds are very strong in the Gobi, there's a high likelihood of sand and broken rock fragments falling into the gun barrels. With this rubber sheath, you can encase the gun muzzles completely and tightly, and prevent sand and rock fragments from falling into the muzzles, thereby extending the firearm's longevity and achieving a protective effect." Realization dawned upon Forbes, and he hastily tossed the golden 001 box into the backpack. As he did so, he muttered, "This is good stuff. Boss, you have quite a few guns, so we have to protect them properly." "All right." It didn't sound like there was much of an issue there, either. "Forbes, help me to flip over the 5 corpses." Soon, Forbes flipped the fanatics' corpses over. Lin Kei stepped forward and located a suitably sized box from the war spoils on the ground. Then, he plucked out all the basic microchips at the back of the fanatics' heads and their necks. These were the most valuable things among all the war spoils here. Based on their value in underground black markets, each basic microchip could fetch at least 10,000 wastelands coins. It wasn't the official public beta period yet, so players hadn't registered in the game yet. There was a high demand for basic microchips in the market, so their prices would only increase. He placed the 5 basic microchips in a box and passed it to Forbes. Then, he stowed all the medical supplies, food supplies, pistols, and ammo into the backpack. As for the light machine gun, mechanical arms, and the exoskeleton armor, those were too heavy. They didn't have any way of carrying them away at all. Lin Kei's physique was on the small side while Forbes was on the fatter end. The exoskeleton armor the fanatics had built were based on their own physiques and weren't adjustable. In addition, they had used tape as adhesives and rags to patch holes at several joints, so there was that kind of wasteland smell to them now. The empty backpack was stuffed to the brim again. "I'm going to the tunnel to get something. Wait here for a while, Forbes." After taking care of the enemies pursuing them, Lin Kei could now freely head to the secret room in the tunnel to retrieve the sea-level mission left there. It was currently slightly past 4 a.m. Although they had searchlights with them, the places their lights couldn't reach still gave off a strange and imposing atmosphere nevertheless. "Boss, I'm going as well." Forbes didn't want to stay here by himself. He simply didn't feel safe somehow. Lin Kei glanced at Forbes's physique and said, "In that case, I'll have to say this in advance, the tunnel is a little cramped. If you feel uncomfortable later, leave the tunnel and wait for me outside." Forbes agreed at once. Following Boss about was definitely safer than staying in the castle that was surrounded by pitch-black darkness. However, Forbes soon realized that he was wrong. The tunnel was small, narrow, and cramped. He had to hold his breath to move about inside. As long as he let out his breath, his belly would become tightly stuck against the walls, rendering him unable to budge at all. Thus, after walking the whole way, Howling Ancient Castle's secret tunnel was completely filled with Forbes's rapid breathing that sounded like a dog's panting. When Forbes squeezed out of the last narrow path, his entire self felt free and relieved as though he had been liberated. Lin Kei pushed open the wooden door at the end of the tunnel. He kept having a feeling as if space-time had crisscrossed and met up again. Howling Ancient Castle had played a decisive role in Lin Kei's game life. Not only had he killed monsters here to farm money, but he had also discovered the tunnels here and obtained a sea-level mission, thereby joyously receiving the Experience the Life of a Short-Lived Famous Person card. The wooden door wasn't locked. He opened the door bolt, revealing a small secret room over 10 square meters large. Inside the secret room were an empty, dust-covered bookshelf and a simple but elegant wooden table. Of course, none of these was the key point. With the searchlight raised, Lin Ke walked over to the bookshelf and picked up a pocket watch at the corner. He opened the pocket watch's cover, which had already gathered dust. On the pocket watch's face was a photo of a gentleman in a suit. His hair was fully slicked back, with not a single strand out of place. He had a straight and perky nose, on which a pair of gold-framed spectacles rested. He also looked well-mannered and refined. In the photograph's bottom right corner was a tiny line of words written by pen for my dear friend, Moros. You've triggered the E-level mission, Moros's pocket watch. Accept/reject. Mission prompt: this is a dust-covered pocket watch that has been misplaced inside Howling Ancient Castle's tunnels. Find Moros and return this pocket watch to him. Sand City is the nearest city to Howling Ancient Castle. Perhaps you can try your luck there. Mission reward: 500 EXP. Other rewards will be awarded depending on the NPC's affection meter. At this point, someone would definitely ask, this isn't right. Didn't you say that he had joyously received a C-level mission? Why has it turned into an E-level mission now? This was where it must be explained that this particular Moros's pocket watch errand mission could only count as the prelude to a C-level mission. Once the E-level mission had been accepted, and the pocket watch had been given to Moros personally, the player would receive a C-level Great Escape mission. The C-level mission would be considered completed once the 8 black-robed pursuers were defeated. The player would then receive great rewards. Accept. As he gazed at the information on the E-level mission which he had accepted all over again, Lin Ke felt as if time had passed by him bit by bit without him even realizing. After so many twists and turns, he was back here again. After watching his boss smiling in a silly manner to himself, Forbes had nothing better to do. Thus, he went over to the wooden table. He felt very unwell after squeezing through the secret tunnel just now, so he decided to take a seat to catch his breath first. He pulled the chair out and planted his butt down. Snap! The chair broke with a snap. With a loud crash, Forbes landed on his butt on the floor. Forbes held his butt with both hands, and his features contorted as he grimaced in pain. Lin Ke even felt the ground shake a few times, and he couldn't help but laugh and say, "Ha ha ha, this chair has been here for more than 40 years. Its internal structure already eroded a long time ago. How can it possibly support your weight?" As Forbes put up with the pain, he gritted his teeth and asked word by word, then, "Why, didn't you tell me, boss? Aren't you clearly just making a fool out of me?" "I didn't think you'd sit on it either," replied Lin Ke innocently as he defended himself while laughing. Then, Lin Ke put away the pocket watch and extended his arm, intending to pull Forbes up. Right at this moment, Treasure Hunter Rat suddenly got up from the ground and quickly scrambled onto Lin Ke's shoulder. The ground emitted a loud crack the next second. Lin Ke shone the searchlight onto the ground. Beneath Forbes's buttocks with it as the center, innumerable cracks started to form and spread outward in every direction. "Oh my god! Forbes has actually crushed the ground with his butt. Run!" Lin Ke grabbed Forbes by the collar and swiftly strode out. However, a strong force dragged Lin Ke back the next second. Sorry, but Forbes was simply too heavy. Thus, Lin Ke hadn't managed to move him. Instead, the inertial force had brought Lin Ke back to where he stood before. The whole room started to cave inward. Lin Ke and Forbes sank along with it and fell into the hole. Lin Ke felt as if he had landed on a blob of jelly. His body bounced back up, and with his quick reflexes, he adjusted his position, staggering a little before steadying himself. Then, he looked at Forbes, who was lying in the pile of debris and whimpering as he hugged himself with both arms. He had suffered a pincer attack after landing, resulting in both his front and back hurting now. Lin Ke raised his head and took a look above him. The secret room had totally caved in, and a huge hole was above him now. Lin Ke pulled Forbes to his feet. Then, he shone the searchlight around them in bewilderment. Why is there another empty space underneath the secret room? Lin Ke found this awfully strange. When he was here 6 years ago, he hadn't discovered this place at all. If Forbes hadn't insisted on sitting on the chair, the ground wouldn't have caved in. He also wouldn't have discovered a place like this. When Lin Ke shone the searchlight around the place, he suddenly noticed something shocking. It stupefied him so much that he became speechless. Forbes rubbed his buttocks as he got up. Boss oof. He'd only just begun to speak when Lin Ke quickly covered his mouth. SHH. When the searchlight's beam landed in front of them again, Forbes's eyes widened by multiple fold of their original size. He was so frightened that his eyeballs nearly fell out of their sockets. Boss. WY, is there an ant nest here? Forbes's voice was shaking and carried a tinge of sobbing. The child had been scared to tears by the ant nest. To tell the truth, Lin Ke had also received a fright. The ant nest branched out like a tree, just like a pillar supporting the sky and connecting the apex and the ground. The bottom of the ant nest was just like tree roots, it extended and spread outward in every direction. The peak of the ant nest was like the canopy of an imperial carriage, spreading outward and pressing closely against the top. Only the center was roughly, about as wide as Forbes's calf. It also connected the two sections. Lin Ke could clearly see countless ants, densely packed together, moving up and down the ant nest. If they had been ordinary, normal ants, Lin Ke and Forbes wouldn't have been that worked up. However, the ants in front of them were desert army ants, also known as legionary ants. They were grim reapers in the desert. Once mobilized, the legion of ants' coverage could stretch long and unbroken for several miles. Along their path of advancement, be it desert scorpions, lizards, or other wild animals and plants, all of them would be cleanly and thoroughly devoured, only leaving behind pale, white skeletons and empty shells. Lin Ke turned the searchlight vertical and, together with Forbes, tiptoed over to the wall. After making a Herculean effort, he finally managed to push Forbes up. I'm telling you that you'll really need to lose some weight after you reach the city. I'm almost dead just trying to push you up. Lin Ke panted heavily as he rested against the wall. He hadn't even felt this exhausted when he crossed swords with the fanatics. Boss, you should also hurry and come up, said Forbes softly as he tried to keep his voice down. He then stretched out an arm, ready to pull Lin Ke up. Lin Ke took large gulps of air and caught his breath. He then went to the side, picked up the searchlight, and prepared to leave. Before he left, Lin Ke took another look at the desert army ant nest. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. A bold idea flashed across his mind. Desert army ants are also living organisms. Nothing wrong about that. It wasn't a practical idea to go straight to the center of the ant nest, so Lin Ke did a little trial on the outermost branch joint extending outward on the ground. He extended a finger, placed it on the ant nest's outermost edge, and entered the synthesis interface. His left hand rested on the ant nest while his right hand held the searchlight. Sorry, your level has been detected to be lower than the queen of the ant nest, level 5. Thus, synthesis cannot be carried out. Lin Ke's eyes lit up. The synthesis is possible. He was ready to try something big. 4S. Chapter 17, Desert Army Ants. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. It had only stated that his level wasn't high enough, but it didn't state that synthesis was impossible. Lin Ke was even more impressed by his synthesis cheating device now. He had only touched a bit of the insignificant outer edges, yet the cheating device actually could scan the ant nest's entire internal structure successfully. The queen of the ant nest was level 5. Lin Ke was currently level 2. He had to raise his level at least 3 times, becoming the same level as the queen ant, before he could carry out the synthesis. Lin Ke took a look at his total EXP. He had an excess of 400 EXP after going from level 1 to level 2. Killing 5 machinery holy cult fanatics had also earned him 2500 EXP. Therefore, he had a total of 2900 EXP now. Oh, right. There's the mission, 2. Lin Ke hurriedly switched to the mission's interface. He had a total of 3 missions right now. 1 sea-level mission, prey hunted by the wasteland. 2 E-level mission, escape from the desolate Gobi, completed. 3 E-level mission, Moroz's pocket watch. After killing the machinery holy cult fanatics and successfully arriving at Weeping Valley as well, he had completed the escape from the desolate Gobi mission. Lin Ke promptly chose to submit the mission assignment. You've completed the E-level mission, escape from the desolate Gobi, and gained 5000 EXP. Your status has changed from slave to refugee. After submitting the mission, he gained 5000 EXP and the status change reward. A total of 7900 EXP. That's enough for me to advance to level 5. Without a second word, Lin Ke began to level up. Leveling up from level 2 to level 3 will consume 900 EXP. Will you level up? Yes/no. Yes. Leveling up from level 3 to level 4 will consume 1400 EXP. Will you level up? Yes/no. Yes. Leveling up from level 4 to level 5 will consume 2100 EXP. Will you level up? Yes/no. Yes. Lin Ke jumped 3 consecutive levels. His leveling up speed was like a rocket that had launched into the sky. After leveling up 3 times, he still had 3500 EXP left. Although leveling up from level 5 to level 6 required only 2800 EXP, Lin Ke didn't rush to level up. As a strong and experienced player, retaining sufficient EXP for level ups was the most basic rule. Leveling up after a battle at critical moments could help dispel negative status effects. One would also recover all HP and energy points. It was equivalent to having 2 lives. After advancing 3 levels in quick succession, Lin Ke had also accumulated 12 latent capacity points. He similarly didn't need to use them now, so he wasn't in a hurry to allocate them to his attributes. Lin Ke took a look at his stats panel and was satisfied with what he saw. Name, Lin Ke. Race, Human. Level, 5. EXP, 3500. Class, N/A. Status, Refugee. Health points, 60/60ths. Energy points, 40/40ths. Stats, Power, 3, Agility, 3, Endurance, 6, Intelligence, 4, Energy, 2, Charm, 1, Luck, 1. Latent capacity points, 12. Talent, N/A. Skills, N/A. Equipment, Sharp Dagger, White, Glock 17 Pistol, White, Bezos T1 Tactical Machine Pistol, White, Pump Action Shotgun, White. Special Abilities, Basic Driving, 40%, Basic Marksmanship, 54%. Appraisal, you're really a lucky one. His level. His EXP. His latent capacity points. His equipment. His appraisal. Cough, let's go back to the main topic. Since he had now reached the level requirement, Lin Ke placed his hand on the edges of the ant nest without a second word and entered synthesis mode. Desert Army Ant Nest, whole, plus searchlight equals 35% success rate. Synthesis consumes 100 HP. Synthesize? Yes/no. Lin Ke frowned lightly when he saw the synthesis formula. Here comes the second problem, consumes 100 HP. That's tough. Lin Ke allocated 9 latent capacity points to his endurance and kept 3 points in reserve. 15 endurance equaled 150 HP. After synthesis, he would still have 50 HP left, so he would roughly still be within the safe zone. After making certain that synthesis was possible, Lin Ke immediately began to think about the synthesis material. What kind of material will give the best results when matched with desert army ants? Lin Ke calmly thought about the materials he had at hand and could use. 1. The ant nest was of green quality, so the material selected also needed to be of high enough quality. Otherwise, Lin Ke would have suffered a huge loss if he spent so much EXP to level up, even using 9 latent capacity points just to synthesize a new pet that didn't have much use. Among all the materials he had at hand, gold was the only thing that counted as a high-quality material at the moment. However, Lin Ke didn't have enough gold at hand. Moreover, he intended to exchange all the remaining gold he had for money when he reached Sand City. Thus, he couldn't use the gold for synthesis. Apart from gold, he only had a few guns and ammunition left now. However, they were all of white quality. With his head lowered, Lin Ke fell into deep contemplation. Then, his eyes suddenly lit up. Right, the fanatic's exoskeleton armor is of light green quality, so that'll barely suffice. Lin Ke had abandoned both the mechanical arms and exoskeleton armor in the ancient castle's garden because they weren't adjustable and were too heavy. It was just right to use them for synthesis and recycle those useless junk now. Forbes, let's go out and bring the exoskeleton armor here. Lin Ke climbed up into the secret room. Then, he and Forbes spent a great amount of effort to drag the exoskeleton armor into the sunken-in secret room. Forbes sprawled on the ground with his butt stuck in the air at the secret room's entrance. He held the searchlight in one hand while his other hand hung in mid-air, ready to pull Lin Ke up at any moment. When he saw how bright and excited his boss's eyes were, Forbes immediately knew that his boss was about to use his supernatural powers, synthesis, again. To be honest, he was also kind of looking forward to seeing what the Desert Army ants would be modified into. 2. Lin Ke carefully placed the exoskeleton armor onto the floor. Then, he placed his other hand on the ant nest's outermost edge again. Desert Army ant nest, whole, plus exoskeleton armor equals 100% success rate. Synthesis consumes 100 HP. Synthesize? Yes/no 1. When Lin Ke saw the 100% success rate, even his breathing became quick and ragged. He didn't expect the compatibility rate between the army ants and exoskeleton armor to be so high. It was actually 100%. What was there to consider anymore? He began the process right away. Synthesize. Lin Ke's right hand began to absorb the exoskeleton armor. His hand was just like a barrel of aquaregia acid. After coming into physical contact with the exoskeleton armor, his palm devoured the armor bit by bit. In just a brief moment, the exoskeleton armor, which weighed a few dozen kilograms, was thoroughly devoured, leaving behind only a few pieces of torn rags and tape bits. At the same time, blood threads began to extend from Lin Ke's other hand. Little by little, they spread from his fingertips and advanced toward the ant nest's trunk. Despite the synthesis interface displaying a 100% success rate, Lin Ke was still nervous. This was his first time synthesizing a living organism and material that were both of green quality. 4. Moreover, the living organism and ant nest was such a unique one this time as well. Adding this to the 100% success rate, Lin Ke was both nervous and full of anticipation at the same time. Lin Ke discovered that the army ants didn't actually display any hostility upon encountering the blood threads. Instead, they chose to be quietly enveloped by them. The blood threads had already wholly enveloped the roots by now. The blood threads climbed up bit by bit, swallowing up the entire white trunk. Forbes's mouth fell agape as he held up the searchlight and watched the entire white ant nest turn into a red blood cocoon, which gave off a bewitching and strange smell. Treasure Hunter Rat rested on the ground beside Forbes. Its two little paws scrabbled at the cave-in's boundaries as it stuck out its little head and watched timidly. Although it was a treasure hunter, it was still just a mouse in the end. When encountering an army ant nest of this scale, its natural instincts were, of course, to become extremely fearful and stay far away. As for Sand Condor, it laid at the side with both its neck and head hanging. Suspended upside down in mid-air, it was sleeping deeply with both its eyes closed. Blood threads enveloped the whole ant nest and formed a gigantic blood cocoon tree. At the same time, the system issued a notification: Blood cocoon incubation countdown, 30 minutes. The amount of time needed was a little long. However, this was understandable. After all, this was Lin Kei's first pet that used a green quality organism. Added to this was a light green quality material. This round of synthesis was of an upper class standard. Alright, you guys can come down now. We'll be able to witness a miracle in half an hour. Upon hearing that there were no dangers, Treasure Hunter Rat was the first to jump down from above. It quickly darted up to Lin Kei's shoulder and placed its paws on its hips in a valiant and heroic manner, seeming to have forgotten how it had obsequiously hidden up there just now. 5. Forbes turned over and slowly shifted his body with his butt up in the air. His pair of thick legs swayed as they hung in the air. Despite being very careful, he still fell from above with a boom in the end. It seemed like he had been overconfident in his arm's strength. With regard to this, Lin Kei tried hard to hold back his laughter and expressed his condolences. His pair of arms had taken on a load that arms of that age shouldn't have had to endure. 1. Half an hour was neither too long nor too short. Lin Kei also didn't stay idle during this period of time and spent it thinking about his future. Ever since the quicksand in the desert ruins, he had relied on the Zerg's Nest's synthesis function as well as his own in-depth knowledge of the game to get through dangers and flee all the way to Weeping Valley safely. His cheating device had an infinite number of wondrous uses. Treasure Hunter Rat, Gerbil, and Sand Condor all nodded to express their agreement. 3. Lin Kei, Little Treasure, Sand Condor, the two of you, stand up for a moment. Treasure Hunter Rat and Sand Condor stood up. Lin Kei, what I'm saying is, everyone seated here is trash. Gerbil? 3. The effects of synthesis were very obvious, but its flaws were also just as obvious. The higher the synthesis creature's level and quality, the more HP the synthesis consumed. Even if Lin Kei wanted strong and powerful pets, he needed sufficient HP if he wanted to synthesize them. Therefore, a pressing need had surfaced in front of Lin Kei: endurance. He needed high endurance and high HP. Toward this, Lin Kei already had no fewer than 3 solutions in mind. He would make detailed plans again according to the situation after he reached Sand City. Apart from that, something else also troubled Lin Kei. He had accidentally activated the cheating device that was Zerg's Nest. According to the plot, it was in version 6.0, Heart of the Swarm, that the final boss Paul the Great Emperor finally gathered all the fragments and synthesized the complete Zerg's Nest. Upon doing so, not only did he awaken all the Zergs in every part of the world, but he also built a great army of synthesized creatures, easily crushing every player. 2. Yet, he had activated one of the fragments now. In that case, that destined one, child of the plot, and legendary boss would definitely find him at some point in the future and kill him to seize the Zerg's Nest fragment currently bound to him. Just thinking about this alone gave Lin Kei a headache. This single luck point of his was a little troublesome. On the one hand, it allowed him to activate his cheating device. On the other hand, it had cemented his fate of being pursued by the final boss in advance. Lin Kei rubbed his face and mentally consoled himself. Phew! No need to worry. I still have 6 years. By relying on my understanding of the game, maybe I can fight a round of 2 with Paul the Great Emperor if I power up myself during these 6 years. During his contemplation, the blood cocoon incubation countdown had ended. The blood cocoon with a tree stump-like outer appearance began to split open and peel apart. Monster synthesis is complete. Obtain Silver Queen Ant, light blue. Monster stats. Name, Silver Queen Ant. Quality, light blue. Race, Formicity. Stats, Metal Affinity. Level, 5. Initial Skill 1, Troop Proliferation LV1. When the Silver Queen Ant activates Troop Proliferation mode, propagation rate is increased by 1000%. Effect lasts 1 day. It has a cooldown period of 30 days. Initial Skill 2, Propagation. the silver queen ant can propagate army ants. The army ant types that she can propagate include worker ants, soldier ants, and flying ants. When food is available, she can produce 1,000 ants per day. Appraisal, an absolute nightmare. The ants the silver queen ant gives birth to have fully metallic bodies. Apart from fully retaining the ant species characteristics, they have also gained a new metal-devouring ability and are able to eat metals. Their metal bodies greatly extend the army ants' lifespans, allowing them to adapt to even more extreme environments. From this moment onward, an existence that is even more terrifying than quicksand has been born in the desert silver army ants. 3. 9s. Chapter 18, The Correct Way to Utilize Treasure Hunter Rat. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. It was common knowledge that monster quality was categorized into white, green, blue, purple, orange, and gold in ascending order. Silver Queen Ant was the first blue pet that Lin Ke had synthesized. Although it was only of light blue quality, it represented a leap in quality. After reading the introduction on the monster's attributes, Lin Ke took a deep breath. It is simply too powerful. It can consume metals and even survive without food. It has amazing reproduction ability and is extremely savage. Although it only has one active skill and one passive skill, these two skills' effects are quite powerful. In addition to Silver Queen Ant, the other army ants in the nest have also completed the glorious evolution, becoming silver army ants. Lin Ke could clearly sense the army ants in the nest. They were just like the red blood cells in blood vessels, moving back and forth along the nest's highway-like structure. Lin Ke could also feel a strong aura, different from the other silver army ants, in the center of the silver ant's nest. Lin Ke took a step closer. The army ants felt his intentions and retreated to the side. The ant nest's original form was gradually revealed, and Lin Ke saw Silver Queen Ant in the deepest part of the nest. It had a thin torso and a plump abdomen that was obviously disproportionate to the size of its body. Silver Queen Ant was about the size of a palm, and had a silver glow when under light. It looked like an exquisite silver artifact. Lin Ke stepped forward and held out his palm. The two antennas on Silver Queen Ant's head swung up and down. It then stretched out its forelimbs, twisted its body, and placed itself on Lin Ke's hand, dragging its fat body up little by little. This sensation is strange and unfamiliar. Lin Ke could feel the subtle touch of the ant's forelimbs on his palm, as well as the cold texture of metal. It was hard to believe that Silver Queen Ant was a real creature, not a work of art. Silver Queen Ant's pincer-like upper jaw was clearly visible as its two antennae lightly tapped Lin Ke's palm. Silver Queen Ant seemed familiar with its master's scent and began to move around boldly on Lin Ke's hand. Lin Ke could clearly feel the sensation of the Queen Ant's legs and exoskeleton as it moved around his palm. It was not spiny, just a little itchy. Goosebumps started to appear on his arm. The Queen Ant's movements were shaky, mainly because its abdomen was too big. Lin Ke saw that the Queen Ant wanted to drag its body up his arm and immediately reached out to block it. "Oh my god, you have to be careful. I will suffer a great loss if you have a miscarriage." Lin Ke picked up Silver Queen Ant and returned it to the center of the nest. As long as it had enough food, the queen could reproduce and grow the team. The silver army ants could survive without food. Synthesis had changed the internal structure of their bodies. The role of food was only to provide energy to the queen so that it could reproduce. This was simply a newly created immortal army. Lin Ke turned his gaze to the other army ants. With just a thought, all the worker ants crawled out of the nest and gathered into a group, waiting for their master Lin Ke's inspection. "Connect and form a bridge." Once Lin Ke gave his order, all the worker ants began to move. They stacked up one by one, quickly forming a curved silver bridge. Lin Ke stepped forward and tried to step on the ladder. He slowly raised his other foot and found that the worker ant's strength was enough to support him. It may be a bridge formed by worker ants, but it felt like he was stepping on concrete. Ordinary army ants could lift objects that were hundreds of times heavier than their bodies. The enhanced silver army ants possessed greater potential. The metal bridge made up of a bunch of army ants could actually support Lin Kei's weight. Lin Kei got off the metal bridge and dismissed the worker ants. "Forbes, get me a spare searchlight." Forbes handed Lin Kei the spare searchlight he asked for. Lin Kei placed the searchlight on the ground and ordered the soldier ants to attack the searchlight. After a while, the soldier ants charged at the source of light valiantly, covering it like a silver curtain piece. The next second, the searchlight's glass lens gave off a cracking sound. It was as though the entire searchlight was compressed by a pair of invisible hands, causing the glass to shatter. All the metal inside was eaten by the soldier ants, only leaving behind some rubber seals and plastic. The silver wave retreated, leaving only an indigestible wreck. Lin Kei did not say a word. Instead, Forbes, who was lying on the ground, gasped in shock. The evolved army ants were too terrifying. They easily consumed the searchlight, leaving only minimal residue. Had it been an adult human, he was afraid it would become a skeleton in the blink of an eye. He then moved on to the flying ants, which were fewer in number. Under Lin Kei's control, they condensed into a silver sphere and flew around in the air. Whenever Lin Kei pointed, the flying ants would head towards that direction. From time to time, the flying ants would spread out into a large silver net or condense into a sphere. They could even form a lethal arrow that was in accordance with Lin Kei's thoughts. Finally, Lin Kei stretched out his hand and pointed at the opposite wall, wanting to test the lethality of the flying ants that were clustered together. Boom! An iron ball struck the wall, and a huge explosion erupted. The wall was blasted open, and a hole more than 30 centimeters wide appeared. There was even yellow light coming through. While looking at the hole in the wall, Lin Kei was a little stunned. How could the wall of this underground chamber be penetrated? Also, why was there light? With no further orders from Lin Kei, the flying ants quickly flew back from the other end of the hole and returned to the nest to guard Silver Queen Ant. Although Lin Kei was surprised, he reacted quickly. The pump-action shotgun had moved from behind his back to his hands. Before Lin Kei could speak, Treasure Hunter Rat seemed to have sensed something. Its little ears twitched constantly, and its eyes were staring straight at the hole that was giving off light. It leaped off Lin Kei's shoulder, scurried over to the wall, and jumped into the hole. Just as Lin Kei was about to say that little treasure was a little too reckless, he immediately heard its report from the other side of the hole. Squeak, squeak. Lin Kei's spirit was roused. Treasure Hunter Rat revealed that it had found treasure and that there were no living people around. As he put away the shotgun, Lin Kei walked to the hole. He made it bigger with a few kicks before bending over to enter the newly found area. The current environment was cold enough, and Lin Kei did not want to breathe in the cold air anymore. After going through the hole, everything in front of him looked very different. There was no end to the corridor. The domed ceiling looked to be professionally polished. On it was a row of electric lights emitting soft, yellow light. The corridor's floor was covered with blue stone slabs. It looked flat at first glance. As there was no thick layer of dust covering it, it led people into thinking that this was newly built. On the left side of the blue stone slab pathway was an underground river with gurgling water. The current was noisy but not rapid. The entire corridor revealed two words: upper class. After seeing the chosen materials and the craftsman's meticulous handiwork, Lin Kei knew that this underground corridor was costly to build. Why is there a corridor here? At least, Lin Kei could explain the reason for the underground tunnel. It was an escape route for the prince back then, in case anything bad happened. However, Lin Kei could not understand the reason for this expensive narrow passageway with an underground river. Although he was already 3 levels underground, his thoughts were still stuck at the first level. Perhaps Howling Ancient Castle had a 5th level. Forbes also poked his head through the hole. He looked around and excitedly said, "Boss, you actually know that there is a corridor here." Just as Lin Kei wanted to speak, he thought of how skillfully he had broken through the wall. Even if Lin Kei were to explain it to Forbes, he would not be able to convince him. Forbes might think that he was just being modest instead. Upon looking back at the hole, Lin Ke frowned as he noticed a problem. When he was with the army ant nest, he could not see anything strange about the hole. However, when viewed from the corridor, the color around the hole was obviously different from the rest of the wall. Although it had been a long time and the wall was already old, there were still obvious differences between the two colors. Lin Ke leaned closer and carefully examined the two colors on the wall. The color around the hole was very distinct when compared to the rest of the wall. It was obvious that the hole was filled up at a later stage. "Boss, what are you looking at?" Forbes's head was still in the hole while he watched Boss pace back and forth in front of him as if he were studying the wall. Lin Ke had a swift reaction. He reached out and pushed Forbes's head out of the hole. He then picked up a polished stone on the ground and muttered to himself. "No, if this hole is newly filled, there is no need to fill it up so nicely and detailed. Even the workmanship is almost the same as the original wall." Just as Lin Ke was thinking it over, an excited cry came from Treasure Hunter Rat, who was not far away. Squeak, 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 squeak. Lin Ke put down the stone and walked towards Treasure Hunter Rat. Forbes looked back at the unmanned ant nest and the densely packed silver army ants on the ground. Goosebumps then formed on his body. Although he knew that these creatures took orders from Boss, he was still afraid of being left alone with these terrifying creatures. Forbes's head went into the hole again as he tried to squeeze through to keep up with Lin Ke. However, his fat body was stuck, unable to move forward or backward. Forbes pushed against the wall with both hands, trying to push himself out. He was not successful despite trying for a long time. He was unable to advance or retreat. Forbes panicked. He began to shout, "Boss, save me!" The bleak cry for help floated in the corridor, traveling for a long distance. However, there was no response from Lin Ke. This was because he had arrived at Treasure Hunter Rat's location at that particular moment and saw a luxuriously dressed skeleton in the corridor. Treasure Hunter Rat used its two small paws to pull the fingers out of the expensive clothes forcefully. It gave its all to lift the skeleton's middle finger high above its head. What a nice hand gesture! Lin Ke's eyes lit up. He squatted down and took off the extravagant ring from the skeleton's middle finger. "You obtained a royal ring." Lin Ke took the extravagant ring in his hand and examined it carefully. In the center of the ring were 5 gemstones, namely diamond, amethyst, sapphire, ruby, and emerald. They were evenly distributed like unique individuals. Overall, the 5 kinds of gems were concentrated in the center, forming a pentagon. The carving techniques were of superb workmanship. In the system, the description for the royal ring only consisted of one line: "The royal ring is so dazzling that it is impossible to look at it directly. The brilliance of many jewels is comparable to the stars in the sky." Lin Ke took the extravagant ring, glanced at the noble attire on the skeleton's body, and his brain worked rapidly. After a while, Lin Ke slowly relaxed his brows and smiled. He rubbed Treasure Hunter Rat's tiny head and said, "Little treasure, you have found a treasure." With this royal ring and the noble attire, Lin Ke had already guessed the identity of the skeleton in front of him. Not surprisingly, the skeleton in front of him was the true owner of Howling Ancient Castle Desert Prince. Enemy detection? No, this is actually the correct way to utilize Treasure Hunter Rat. Lin Ke bragged. Treasure Hunter Rat worked even harder after being praised. It buried its head into the skeleton's clothes again. Another treasure. Lin Ke waited with bated breath. After a few seconds, Treasure Hunter Rat dragged a black, stick-like object from the skeleton's clothes using its 2 small claws. Upon seeing the stick's information in the holes, the joy on Lin Ke's face gradually faded. This does not look like a treasure, but a recorder? 5s. Chapter 19, A-Level Entrustment. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. A recorder? Lin Ke was disappointed and had many questions. According to the plot in my previous life, didn't the desert prince become a rich man in Sand City and ultimately die of old age? Why did his corpse end up in the secret passageway, 3 levels below Howling Ancient Castle? He had so many questions that he wanted answers to. The remains in front of him were completely devoid of flesh and blood, leaving only a luxurious attire and dense white bones. It seemed like the person had died a long time ago. Lin Ke took the recorder from treasure hunter Rat. The recorder felt cold. Its special matte texture gave Lin Ke a strange feeling. God knows how long this prince has been dead for. The recorder should be out of power, right? Although Lin Ke said this, he subconsciously pressed the switch. The recorder's screen suddenly lit up with a light blue cold light, indicating that there was still 3% power left. Hey, there is still power. Lin Ke was taken aback. He didn't know how long the prince had been dead. However, judging from the fact that his flesh and blood had completely corroded, leaving only a pile of bones and clothes behind, he estimated it should have been at least 20 or 30 years. Since there was still power, Lin Ke quickly pressed the play button. Lin Ke had too many questions in his mind at this moment, and he needed answers urgently. He thought he knew everything about Howling Ancient Castle. Unexpectedly, he made new discoveries today. The recording started playing, but he couldn't hear any sound. After a while, the recorder made a beep. New era, March 15, year 212, sunny. It is obvious that the countdown to the Cold War has reached 0, and the 2 superpowers have pressed the red button of nuclear war. All information networks have collapsed, and I can only record everything I see with a voice recorder. In the afternoon, I stood on the heights of the ancient castle and saw the nuclear explosion's dark clouds in the distance. Wasteland calendar January 1st, year 1, cloudy. I decided to name today as the Wasteland era. After the day of reckoning on which the nuclear explosion occurred, communication was partially restored, and I received news from the outside world. There is chaos everywhere. The rules of the old age are now completely obsolete, and the new order of savage power has begun. Those who have power will become the new king. Wasteland calendar January 3rd, year 1, cloudy. The news report stated that the death toll in the world exceeded 40%. With the diffusion of nuclear radiation, this number will increase to 80%. Many cultural treasures have disappeared during the war. People paid the price for their narrow-mindedness and madness. Alas, this planet has no future. Wasteland calendar January 5th, year 1, cloudy. I heard that Sand City built an underground doomsday shelter after the war. Fortunately, I created a lot of secret entrances at the start of Howling Castle's construction. In addition to secret passages and secret rooms, I also built a tunnel in the castle's deepest part, which leads to Sand City. If the doomsday shelter works, I will have another path of survival. Wasteland calendar January 9th, year 1, cloudy. The cloud of nuclear radiation has gradually spread over from the desert. Alonso says that the clouds will reach Weeping Valley within 3 days. Howling Castle does not have the ability to withstand nuclear radiation. The soldiers outside are in chaos, and everyone in the castle is filled with despair. We can only wait for our deaths. Maybe, it's time to tell them about the underground passage. Wasteland calendar January 10th, year 1, cloudy. The nuclear radiation cloud is indeed getting closer. I also hear that it has been snowing in the desert, black snow with radiation. However, there are 2 pieces of good news today. 1. I managed to connect to the Sand City underground shelter's radio signal and have communicated with them. 2. I told everyone about the underground tunnel. Smiles and vitality have finally returned to their downcast faces. Wasteland calendar January 11th, year 1, overcast. The weather is getting colder, and the clouds are getting closer. It's time to leave here. There may be a lot of food, treasures, and weapons in the castle, but these are not what I care about the most. What matters to me are the various documents, collections, and cultural relics I have collected. These items are proof of history and are invaluable. Wasteland Calendar, January 12, Year 1. The sky is overcast, and the black snow has arrived. Everything has been packed, and everyone has withdrawn from the secret tunnel and entered the underground passage. A small incident also took place during the process. Workers found an ant nest in the secret tunnel. This group of little fellows is really unfortunate. They unexpectedly encountered a nuclear winter just as they settled down in the secret tunnel. The secret tunnel's first level cannot be isolated from the nuclear dust. I asked the workers to dismantle the ant nest and move it 3 levels underground before sealing the upper levels. Whether they can survive depends on their vitality. I have to leave. Cough. I'm so stupid. It's the law of the wastelands now, and I thought they were loyal to me. I am not going to make it. I don't know if anyone will discover this sealed passageway and discover my bones here in the future. If so, I hope you can click on the recorder and hear this. Please, do me a favor and remember the names of these traitors. The content in the recorder was too exciting. Lin K listened attentively, in fear of missing any names. Augustine Frank, Moros Matt, James Dean, Jean Alonso, Lang Guan, Ling Long, Aziz. Lin K's head was heavy after he finished listening. He pressed the recorder's pause button. It wasn't because these names were complicated and difficult to remember, but because they were all prominent figures in the game. Each of the 7 was a bigwig. While Lin K digested the prince's words, his brain moved rapidly. It turns out that these 7 people divided up the prince's wealth after killing him. They then established themselves in the post-doomsday wasteland, eventually becoming representatives of the various forces. Lin K suppressed the shock in his heart. He then turned on the recorder to listen to the remaining content. I originally planned to distribute these useless gold and silver treasures to them after arriving in Sand City and roam through these troubled times by myself. I intended to collect as many of the previous era's cultural relics as possible so as not to let human civilization end after the Day of Reckoning. I didn't expect them to be malicious. Ha ha ha, it's a pity that they are short-sighted. They never thought that the Mandala family still has a treasure trove. I have divided the treasure map into 7 pieces and placed them into their waist badges. None of the 7 are willing to live an ordinary life. I originally planned to wait until we reached Sand City to give them a surprise, allowing them to seek the treasure and use the wealth inside to realize their aspirations. Now it seems, cough, cough. I'm almost dying. Long story short, the ring on my finger is the key to open the treasure vault. If possible, please inherit the Mandala family's will. Wear this ring and make those betrayers pay the price. Please take this ring and the treasures as our gratitude. Also, don't lose the recorder. Open it. The recording stopped abruptly, and everything went quiet. After playing all the voice recordings, the remaining 3% power was used up, and the screen gradually dimmed. At the same time, a notification appeared on the system interface. You have triggered the A-level mission, Mandala's Revenge. Accept/reject. Mission prompt: if you want to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. Inherit the Mandala family's will and take revenge on the 7 betrayers. For clues on the 7 betrayers, you can obtain them just by asking anyone on Wasteland's planet. Mission reward: the mission is divided into 7 stages. After each stage, you will be dynamically rewarded according to the evaluation. A-level mission. From the recorder, Lin K could feel the splendor of this entrusted mission. After all, the enemies were famous leaders of Wasteland's planet. He never expected that this would actually be an A-level mission. A-level missions, as the name suggested, were extremely difficult and involved the planet's main storyline. There were several requirements before a mission could be designated as A-level. However, Lin K clearly remembered that the former Wasteland's planet's main scenario was to help awaken the Savior. This is Wasteland's planet's hidden main scenario. Back then, the other two starter planets' hidden main scenarios were discovered by people. However, Wasteland's planet had only one official main scenario. Countless players spent a lot of effort trying to uncover the hidden main scenario but were unsuccessful. With the launch of version 2.0, the players' attention shifted to outer space, and Wasteland's planet's hidden main scenario was neglected. A-level missions were extremely difficult, but the rewards were rich. Oppose the 7 major forces. This mission was even more challenging than the official main scenario. Accept. Lin Ke thought for a moment and accepted the mission decisively. He had the cheating device, Zerg's Nest. Now the hidden main scenario filled with rich rewards was activated by chance. Why not go for it? There were only a handful of A-level missions. He naturally didn't want to miss any of them. He was a man who was determined to challenge Paul the Great Emperor. How could he square up to him if he couldn't even handle a novice planet's hidden main scenario? This was a huge obstacle but also an opportunity. Lin Ke put on the royal ring and received a new identity. You obtained a new identity, Mandala spokesperson. Lin Ke did not forget about the recorder. The prince's unfinished words before his death had greatly increased Lin Ke's interest in the recorder. According to the prince's words, he implied that something was hidden in the recorder. However, this recorder appeared to be one single body. Lin Ke could not find any lid after looking at it for a long time. Only the army ants can open it. Lin Ke got up and walked back. Treasure hunter rat jumped back onto Lin Ke's shoulder. It held his head high and puffed its chest, expecting praise from its master. This is all your effort. Lin Ke understood it very well and praised it. As they were walking back, they saw half of Forbes's body stuck in the hole. He appeared unwell. What is going on? Forbes looks very weak. Lin Ke felt a little curious as he pulled Forbes from the hole. The army ants at the edge of the hole retreated to the nest. Forbes was sweating profusely, and he looked as though he had lost his soul. Forbes, wake up! Lin Ke reached out and slapped Forbes's cheek, causing his greasy flesh to tremble wildly. Forbes gradually came to his senses. After seeing Lin Ke, Forbes burst into tears. Boss, you are finally back. If you came a little later, you wouldn't have been able to see me again. It turned out that Forbes had felt a pile of army ants on his backside and got frightened, wanting to escape like crazy. However, he was stuck in the hole. No matter how hard he struggled, he was unable to move even an inch. He shouted and screamed non-stop. Unfortunately, Lin Ke was mesmerized by the recorder's contents and had filtered out all the noises from the outside world. Finally, Forbes expended all his energy, thus collapsing and becoming unconscious. Lin Ke laughed after hearing this. The army ants were actually helping Forbes to loosen the hole, yet he thought that they were going to eat him. Why don't you lie down and relax? Lin Ke's top priority was to see what was hidden in the recorder. Creators' thoughts. Atlas Studios. From December 18, 2020, there will be only 40 chapters for trial read, with chapters 20 to 40 locked. After a book is picked, chapters 20 to 39 will have the locks automatically removed. Chapters 1 to 39 will become free to read, with chapter 40 remaining a premium chapter. The selected book will have a mark on the corner of the book cover in 30 days to indicate continuation. Coins spent on all books during trial read will all be refunded within 30 days. However, fast passes will not be refunded. Thank you for your understanding. 6s. Chapter 20, Setting up the Arrangement. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios. The army ants had already loosened the walls around them by quite a bit. After applying just a bit of force, Lin Ke pushed over large patches of earth and rocks and walked straight in. Pry open the recorder's shell for me. Lin Ke placed the recorder on the floor. A group of silver worker ants swarmed forward and instantly surrounded the recorder. Lin Ke squatted at the side and watched them closely, lest the worker ants damage the contents hidden within the recorder in a moment of carelessness. "Hey, be careful over there, little guys." Lin Ke propped his head against his palms and watched them with wide eyes. The worker ants didn't immediately gnaw on the recorder after they came forward. Instead, they fully surrounded the recorder, just like inspecting foremen at a construction site. It was only after they circled around the recorder quite a few times that they confirmed how they should carry out the task. The worker ants stretched out their pincer-like upper jaws and constantly scraped them against the recorder, chipping off metal fragments bit by bit. When the first team had finished demolishing the recorder, they formed a tidy line and headed toward the ant nest with the metal fragments in their mouths. The second team then lined up behind them and immediately took over their positions. Lin Ke watched as a white mark visibly formed deeper and deeper around the recorder. The ants moved in an orderly and proper manner as they executed their orders without fail. Lin Ke had long known about the army ants' mentality of sticking to their tasks to the bitter end, as well as their firm and steadfast willpower. However, this was his first time seeing a few hundred worker ants completing their task in an orderly manner while moving at a uniform speed. It was so neat that they practically looked like they were cast from the same mold. A sight like this was far more intense than even seeing a behemoth from prehistoric times. In no time, the worker ants broke the metal around the recorder with their teeth and returned to the ant nest with neat and uniform movements. Lin Ke easily opened the recorder. Underneath the circuit board, he discovered another. Why another? It was because he found another black metal rod quietly lying in the semicircle-shaped recorder shell when he took out the circuit board. What's this? Lin Ke held the black metal rod in his hand and examined it closely. The metal rod was 10 centimeters long and pitch black in color throughout. Very soon, Lin Ke discovered the first thing that differentiated it from others. This particular metal rod had a very high degree of blackness. To put it in more professional terms, it had an extremely low degree of reflectivity. Next, the black metal rod had a hexagonal silhouette. It had firm outlines and was slightly narrower than a pencil. If a curved handle was added at the top, it would totally become a hex key. Lin Ke subconsciously gripped the black metal rod and pressed his thumb against it to test the metal rod's hardness. 1. In the end, the metal rod neither budged nor bent even a little, even after his thumb had become completely red. Lin Ke was a veteran player with 6 years of game experience. When re-evaluating the metal rod through the eyes of someone who had experienced the game before, the metal rod didn't seem like something that a planet like Wasteland's planet, which had developed peacefully for over 40 years, could create with its technology. As for the system's explanation, black metal rod, it's pretty mysterious. 1. It was also rather patronizing. As if I don't goddamn know that this thing is very mysterious. The speechless Lin Ke could only keep the black metal rod for now. You guys can carry that corpse outside over here and bury it. Lin Ke had accepted a hidden main scenario mission from the prince and even inherited the mandala name. He couldn't just let the prince's corpse continue lying here in the secret tunnel, after all. The ant nest had been left here by the prince out of kindness back then. More than 40 years later, Lin Ke would let these army ants personally lay the prince to rest and repay the prince's kindness of bringing them up from back then. When the diligent worker ants received their orders, they lined up without a second word and marched out of the cave in a neat and uniform manner. They went right up to the prince's remains and transported him body, clothes, and all back in. Forbes finally woke up somewhat after resting for a while. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw a skeleton, dressed in splendid clothes, drifting on the floor. His eyes rolled up, and he passed out from fright again. The worker ants transported the prince's remains to the specified location and started to dig at the walls and ground. Earth visibly covered the prince's remains, forming a firm and solid little mound of earth in the end. Lin Ke looked at the ant nest, then at the royal ring on his ring finger. If he hadn't discovered the ant nest and hadn't received an A-level entrusted mission before this, Howling Ancient Castle would have just been an interchange station where Lin Ke rested before entering Sand City. However, he had to think about this properly now. Since he had now accepted the A-level mission, some of the large forces in Sand City had naturally become Lin Kei's enemies. There were a lot of forces in Sand City. Sand City's situation was complicated and filled with fierce undercurrents. When the time came for Lin Kei to act, even a small action would lead to a domino effect. This would cause Sand City to fall into a state of chaos for sure. He would then need a base where he could advance when attacking and retreat when defending. Although Howling Ancient Castle was old and run down, there were 3 layers of secret tunnels inside it. Lin Kei was also extremely familiar with the environment here. Most importantly, he could use the secret tunnels here to travel back and forth between Sand City and Ancient Howling Castle without anyone knowing. Weeping Valley, as a zone of transition wedged between the Machinery Holy Cult and Sand City, could be said to be an independent zone. There was still half a year to go before players officially entered the game. The planet's main scenario mission, Mandala's Revenge, clearly showed that he would become enemies with all the large forces. Thus, Lin Kei would, inevitably, need to build a force of his own. After players entered the game, he could then make use of his NPC status to contact some players and issue missions to guide the players into carrying out tasks for him. Alright, let's establish the base at Howling Ancient Castle, then. In Lin Kei's past life, this was where he had become famous. Now, he had also accepted a main scenario mission here. To Lin Kei, this place could be already considered a land of great treasures. During Lin Kei's musing, Forbes ran in unsteadily from outside. "Boss, something's wrong. I saw a moving skeleton just now." Lin Kei raised his head and glanced at Forbes. He calmly said, "I didn't see any skeletons, though. Did you get stuck for too long just now and ended up hallucinating because you hadn't fully woken up yet?" Forbes's eyes swept across the secret room, but he didn't see any skeletons. He couldn't help but scratch his head. Were my eyes really playing tricks on me? Alright, we've been busy the whole night. Let's have a good rest now. Ever since the two of them had escaped all the way here from the Strong Winds Desert and the desolate Gobi, they had only curled up and made do under a large Gobi rock for one night. In Howling Ancient Castle, Lin Kei had gotten rid of 5 Machinery Holy Cult fanatics. After that, he discovered a lot of secrets one after another. His mind had been in a highly stimulated state the whole time. Forbes took a look at the tree-shaped ant nest and the dense pack of silver army ants, and goosebumps broke out all over his body. In the end, he slipped past the walls to the secret tunnel outside and laid down there. Before long, the sound of rhythmic snoring drifted in from outside. "All army ants, listen up. Explore Howling Ancient Castle immediately. Spread out the teams and dig out all its secrets." After Lin Kei issued his orders, all the worker ants, soldier ants, and flying ants were mobilized. They then scattered and spread into every part of the castle. Since he was going to use Howling Ancient Castle as his base, Lin Kei would need to have an even clearer understanding of the castle. A few hours ago, Lin Kei would still have dared to pat his arm and claim that he knew Howling Ancient Castle inside out. However, he now needed to dispatch the army ant troops to conduct a thorough exploration of Howling Ancient Castle so as to guarantee that not a single area was left out. The only ones capable of doing this task were the all-pervasive army ants. After the army ants scattered into every part of the castle, Lin Kei could see Silver Queen Ant in the center of the ant nest with just one glance. Previously, the army ants had chewed off metal and transported some metal fragments back to Silver Queen Ant. At the moment, Silver Queen Ant was picking up the metal fragments with its front legs and stuffing them into its mouth before chewing on them. Its enormous abdomen at the bottom began to shake. Right after that, it squeezed a silver metal egg the size of a rice grain out of its abdomen, which landed in the ant nest. Silver Queen Ant picked up another metal fragment, which was as tiny as a speck of dust, with its front legs and continued to chew on it. After consuming quite a few more metal fragments in succession, another metal egg squeezed its way out of Silver Queen Ant's abdomen. Lin Kei went forward and examined the metal egg closely. The rice grain-sized metal egg's surface was as bright and clean as a drop of water. Shortly after, a pattern appeared on the metal egg's surface as if the water droplet wrapped within was gradually sublimating. The embryonic shape of an army ant was then further revealed. Feelers, front legs, and hind legs came off the water droplet, and the silver army ant's form grew more and more complete. During Lin Kei's few minutes of observation, Silver Queen Ant had already laid 3 to 4 more metal eggs. Army ants spilled into every corner of the castle. Through his unique blood link with them, Lin Kei could clearly detect every army ant's location. In Lin Kei's mind, the army ants' location points connected into lines, which formed a map that outlined all of the castle's secret tunnels and its layout. An army ant's sense of perception was much stronger than treasure hunter rats or a human's. Even if a thick wall blocked it, it could still dig a way out, regardless. Toward the end, the castle's structure became increasingly clear, but the dizzy Lin Kei fell asleep from fatigue instead. In his dreams, Lin Kei dreamed of heavy rain pouring from the sky, and the rainwater splattered against his cheeks. The rainwater was like needles, and they hurt somewhat when they jabbed against his face. Toward the end, the rain straight up turned into a stormy squall that could suffocate a person. Phew! Lin Kei's eyes suddenly flew open, and he realized that treasure hunter rat was currently licking his face and his hair. Its whole body just so happened to be right in front of his nose, which made him unable to breathe. Lin Kei took a look at the system panel. It was already 10:30 am. He had spent 6 hours in security and comfort, where he didn't need to worry about enemies ambushing him or whether they would live to see the next day. Lin Kei wiped his face in an attempt to force his mind to clear up. He then looked at the tree stump-shaped ant nest again. All the army ants had already returned. Lin Kei briefly communicated with the army ants. The little fellows noisily chattered as they clambered to be the first to speak. During his conversation with the army ants, Lin Kei was informed that Howling Ancient Castle did indeed have places he had yet to discover. He got up cleanly and efficiently. Then, he got the flying ants to lead him to those places. The flying ants flew in front of him, coming together to form an arrow as they led the way for Lin Kei. After the synthesis process, the flying ants could also understand Lin Kei's thoughts due to their blood link with Lin Kei. In no time, Lin Kei discovered a new cave in the tunnels. When the army ants discovered this place the previous night, they had directly dug a hole and even used the excess earth to construct stairs that led down into the cave. The constructed stairs were even, well arranged, and rather well done. 1. After that, the flying ants brought Lin Kei to another area. Out of the 2 secret rooms, one was an underground prison, while the other was a wine cellar. All the things inside had already been removed. Craftsmen had also sealed the entrances. If not for the army ants, these 2 places wouldn't have been discovered at all. Lin Kei returned to the tunnel and walked over to Forbes, who was letting out thunderous snores. "Forbes, time to wake up," called out Lin Kei. However, Forbes didn't react. Treasure hunter rat jumped down from Lin Kei's shoulder and jumped onto Forbes. It patted its chest, indicating that Lin Kei could leave the task of waking Forbes to little treasure. Then, it greeted Forbes with a flurry of punches. 2. Number 2. A dazed Forbes opened his eyes and rubbed his cheeks that had turned red. "Boss, you've woken up, too. I intend to go to Sand City today. However, this trip will be filled with many difficulties. I may encounter a lot of enemies, and there may be life-endangering situations. What are your plans? Are you going to stay in the castle and help me look after the base, or do you want to follow me into Sand City and try to make a name for yourself there?" Forbes immediately sobered up upon hearing that there would be life-endangering risks. "Boss, will I be staying in the castle by myself if I stay here?" Lin Kei shook his head. "No, you'll stay here with the army ants to rebuild the castle and wait for my return." "Boss, Sand City is so dangerous. How can you go there without my assistance? Moreover, I can even take care of your day-to-day needs. As boss's most reliable right-hand man, how can I not be around when you're making a name for yourself in Sand City?" 1. Creator's thoughts. Atlas Studios. From December 18, 2020, there will be only 40 chapters for trial read, with chapters 20 to 40 locked. After a book is picked, chapters 20 to 39 will have the locks automatically removed. Chapters 1 to 39 will become free to read, with chapter 40 remaining a premium chapter. The selected book will have a mark on the corner of the book cover in 30 days to indicate continuation. Coins spent on all books during trial read will all be refunded within 30 days. However, fast passes will not be refunded. Thank you for your understanding. 1.